Welcome, folks, to this is the September 19th meeting of the Ashland Board of Selectmen. I want to thank our friends at WACA-TV for televising this. Is there anybody recording the meeting that we need to know about? Nobody? And our chair, Carl Hackinson, couldn't make it tonight. My name is Rob Scher. I'm the vice chair. I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. I would just like to call on Diane Hanson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Diane, if you just come stand right here and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Okay, we have some proclamations tonight, and so I'd like to I'm just going to move we will have citizens participation. I'm just going to move it, well, it's actually in the agenda after proclamations, and I also think we have one selectman's appointment, which I think we're going to do after the proclamation. So I'll turn over to Steve Mitchell for our first proclamation.
So I'm going to move up to the podium, and I would like Joanne Duffy, our Director of Elder Services, and Alexis Christopher, who is the Vice Chair of the Council on Aging, to come up as well.
Very good.
So we have two proclamations for this evening, and these are for members of the Council on Aging, longtime members from the Council on Aging, Alice Smart and Arthur Kaya. And I'm just going to read these real quick. Alice Smart and her husband Malcolm have been residents of the town of Ashland for many years, and Alice was a school teacher for many years and understands that many of the skills she used in her career also transfer to the volunteer work that she has done for the community. And whereas Alice has volunteered for many years, but most recently served on the Council on Aging, which she was appointed to in 2005, and whereas Alice had originally started with the Council on Aging by filling in as an alternate, but really enjoyed the role and continued to serve for many years, and whereas the Council on Aging and the community has benefited greatly by Alice's hard work and dedication, her compassion and devotion will be greatly missed by her fellow council members, and now therefore we the selectmen of the town of Ashland do hereby proclaim Thursday, September 21st, 2017 as Alice Smart Day. We urge all residents to make known their appreciation for her devotion to the town of Ashland. We wish her good health and good fortune. Signed, Carl Hackinson, Chairman, on behalf of the Ashland Board of Selectmen. So if I can give this to Joanne to submit to Alice. Unfortunately, both Alice and Arthur weren't able to attend tonight. Both are having dealing with personal health issues, but it's great to see representation here from the Council on Aging in support of both their members. So the second is for Arthur. Arthur and Clara Kaya have lived in Ashland for many years, raising and educating their children here, and whereas Arthur has been an active member of the community for many years, and whereas Arthur has served on several boards and commissions over the years, but most recently has served on the Council on Aging, which he was appointed to in 1996. And whereas Arthur served on the building committee for the community center, which was completed in 2003, and whereas the benefit of Arthur's hard work and dedication to as an active member of the Council on Aging will be felt for many years, his compassion and devotion to the council will help to ensure its future success and prosperity. Now, therefore, we, the selectmen of the town of Ashland, do hereby proclaim Friday, September 22nd, 2017 as Arthur Kaya Day. We urge all residents to make known their appreciation for his devotion to the town of Ashland. We wish him good health and good fortune. Again, signed by Carl Hackinson, Chairman, on behalf of the Ashland Board of Selectmen. So if you could submit that to Arthur and his family. And again, on behalf of the board, most appreciated. I mean, really, really nice people. I've gotten to know them over the years. Of course, you council members have served with them for for a long time. So again, we appreciate their service and wish all the best to Alice and Malcolm and Arthur and Kaya. So.
And I will let them know, they feel like family to us because we have, and Jan and I have worked there since the inception. So I told them I was going to accept this as family members because that's what happens, I think, when you spend a lot of time at the senior center, and especially the amount of time that they both have volunteered, as well as, I have to mention their spouses. I feel the need to. Malcolm, Alice's husband, worked at Board of Health for
Malcolm,
many,
sure.
many years. And Clara has worked on the Friends
right.
for many years,
Right.
and we are really missing both of them. But we appreciate what they did.
Well, it's a great facility, our community center and our elder services department. And this past Monday there was a luncheon for residents that were over 80 years old. Now, there was 130. Was that the
Yeah.
count? Out of, what do we figure, 400?
Over 400.
Over 400 in the community. It was a great event, and it was it's just great to see. So again, our best wishes to Arthur and to Alice. Anything from you, Alexis?
The only thing I would like to do is I'd like to thank those individuals from the town who came and served and worked on Monday. That was much appreciated by the elders there. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. And now it's my pleasure to announce that we have a proclamation for the Garden Club on congratulations on their 25th anniversary. And Yolanda's going to read that. And I think I would ask the representatives to come up to the podium as well. That's Kathy Derlin, Gretchen Bravacos, Lois Bennett, Margie Gassel, and did someone else join you?
Chris Hall.
Chris Hall. So come on up and
I always say, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, these are the really fun things that we get to do, is to give these proclamations to recognize work that many people do in our community. And the Garden Club is a true asset to Ashland, and we are all fortunate for the work that all of you do, as well as your other members. So thank you. So this Board of Selectmen proclamation, whereas the Ashland Garden Club is celebrating its 25th anniversary with the current membership exceeding 25 members, and whereas the Ashland Garden Club emerged after the community saw the efforts of Rick Galani working to spruce up downtown, and the community joined in to assist with his vision, and whereas the Ashland Garden Club has expanded the areas of focus to include additional locations each year, and they have inspired local businesses to beautify their public spaces as well. And whereas the residents of Ashland would like to thank the Ashland Garden Club members, past and present, for all their devotion and hard work. Now, therefore, we, the selectmen of the town of Ashland, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, September 20th, 2017, as Ashland Garden Club Day, and we urge all residents to make known their appreciation for the devotion to the town of Ashland. We wish them all good health and good fortune, and it's signed by Carl Hackinson, the chair, on behalf of the Ashland Board of Selectmen.
all right, very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna leave that for you. Leave,
I'm gonna just pick it up. Well, thank you all very much. We're very excited. Very nice thing for you to do for us. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for all their support through the BAA grant and all the nice things you say about our club. We love what we do. We appreciate all your appreciation. And thank you very much for the proclamation.
Thank you, Lois.
thank you.
Very nice
Thank
event
you.
you put on, too. All right, thank you all. So our next agenda, I think we'd just like to, we have a selectman's appointment to the, which one is that, Steve?
On the Council on Aging,
Council
would be
on
6B.
And that person is here, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to leave.
Oh, Margie, so why don't you stay, you
on.
want to stay for a
Quick.
minute? And
Well, you're right here.
you know, we have a
Be real
number,
quick.
we have 25 questions to ask you.
And a test.
That's right. Yeah, so Margie, while you're here, we did have an issue, seriously, I'm sorry, about a procedural issue, so we actually cannot appoint you today. But I expect at our next meeting, we will appoint you. There was just not a proper notice period, is my understanding, so, but thank you for coming forward for that. So thank you. And the appointment we do have is,
Can I ask, I know we're not appointing Margie, but can we at least
sure,
have her answer
Oh,
our questions
great
we
idea.
usually
Then you don't-
ask, so
then-
she doesn't have to come back? So that should
Exactly.
everything
Good idea.
go through procedurally,
Sure.
we can appoint her?
yes, very
So if
good.
you wouldn't mind coming up?
Put the cat before the horse in this one.
No, that's. So just if you could, if you don't mind, Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in being a member of the Sustainability Committee.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you bend it down a little bit more? There you go.
Okay.
That's good.
So I moved to Ashland about a little over a year and a half ago. I moved from California, where I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency for 22 years. And one of the tasks that I had when I was working for them was to go on a research expedition to what's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or the North Pacific Gyre, where I saw how much plastic trash was polluting the oceans. So I feel very passionately about that kind of work, and I guess I've been sort of a tree hugger my whole life. And I would just be delighted, well, I'm already working with the Sustainability Committee, but I would be delighted to be an official member with them.
Great. It makes perfect,
Any-
it sounds like a very good fit.
Any other questions for Margie, or?
I know Margie, no.
No, but-
Did you have anything you wanted to say to us, or about anything else, I should say? But, no.
No?
That was pretty good. I don't know if you have enough qualifications working for the
Yeah, I know.
EPA for 25 years. I don't know. So, anybody else?
I understand, though, your timing is relative to, also relative to the movement towards a plastic bag ban as well. And you may be forced to wear that plastic ban
They
The
tell you
about that?
monster.
So I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
I would be willing to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, Margie, for coming
Thank you.
forward
Thank
and
you.
stepping up. Okay. So we do have the appointment that I believe is Jean Delucci. Is she here? Okay. This is for the council, DeLucre, I'm sorry. The Council on Aging. So Jean, would you mind coming up and, your speech cannot be longer than 25 minutes.
Don't worry.
So, questions for Jean? Any thoughts?
I would just ask, again, similar, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested on being on the Council of Aging.
Well, I've been a resident in Ashland for the last 43 years. I've raised my children, and they now teach in the school system here. I have experience with the elderly, having taken care of my mother-in-law and my own mother, who was very active in the senior center. She loved every minute of it. And I just think I have a lot to give. I just hope that I can do as well as my predecessors, who you just gave a
Sure.
proclamation to.
Okay.
Great. And as Jean has been recommended by the Council on Aging.
Yeah,
so-
I was at the meeting where the various applicants were interviewed, and I thought it was well done, and there was actually, I believe, 4 that were interviewed, and Jean and a second person were recommended, so I think it was a wise choice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And I'm noticing from the motion, we could appoint Donnell, how do you say that name, Villemere? So I don't know if people want to do that right now, or
Let's take them
that
as
person
separate, the
is not
dates are
here.
different anyway, so.
Oh, okay. So do I have a motion to appoint Jean Delucre to the Council on Aging?
Sure, I move that we appoint Jean Delucre to the Council on Aging with a term that will expire on 8/31/18.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Opposed?
much.
No, unanimous.
Huh? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You.
Who was there?
Thank you, Jean. All right, so just to go back to the order of our agenda,
Are we not doing Donnell, or?
well,
She may be here later on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll hold
I
off
would
on
suggest we
that.
hold off.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so I'll now open it for citizens' participation. Anybody who wants to, we'll go in back, is there?
Is the Burger City,
Yes,
was
so
there an
I-
official, was there a
No, it's
a
not
hearing
an official
notice?
hearing
Okay.
notice, no.
All right.
Okay, so we can push a little bit.
All right.
Okay.
So, citizens' participation, okay.
Hi, my name is KG Narayana. I'm from 49 Thomas Road in Ashland. On 2nd of August, I guess I came up here in the podium and then presented 3 checks totaling of $1,000 for Ashland Food Pantry as a donation. I was hoping that that would be accepted on 6th of September. They couldn't, or it was not in the agenda. And I frantically tried to reach Rob through text message. I guess probably he
Yeah.
didn't reach to the phone to know that. And I looked at today's agenda items, and then there is one on consent agenda item that's saying that donations, toys, and other stuff, but I didn't know whether that included the check that I gave, $1,000 check or not. I just wanted to make sure it is taken care of. Even, I know the check has been cashed, that has gone to the proper place, but I just want to make sure that the selectmen accept it. And then, going forward, I think we should probably get a better process for this than waiting for me to come down here again and again, reminding people for that.
So
I
just that
appreciate
you
it.
know, it is in the,
I have no idea.
that we
It's-
are accepting today. It's in
Oh,
our
it didn't
list
say
of the
there on the-
consent agenda of
Right,
the
but it was lumped
$1,000.
together. It didn't make specific statement about that one, so I
No,
thought it
it's-
is.
it-
I just wanted to make sure it is
Yeah.
on that.
It's in there, KG. It's part of our consent agenda where we bundle things together and vote on it
I
collectively.
know, but I didn't know that that particular item was there on that
That
one.
would
So
be
it only
4B.
says donation and toys and other things, so I just wanted to make sure that is part of the donation. That's
Yes,
all
it is.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And thank you, KG,
Thank
for
you for
your
your
generous
donation.
donation.
Sorry for coming here again and
No,
again.
that's
Thank
all
you.
right.
No,
It's
that's
good to see you again. Okay. Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, Steve Morgan. Just real quickly, I wanted to update the Board of Selectmen and ask that you clear something up for me if you could. So, as the selectmen may know, and I can give you a copy, the state found an open meeting law complaint, 2017-140, against the prior chair for communicating via email. And I think there was a recent complaint against the new chair for similar conduct. I think town council submitted on your behalf a response saying there was no violation. So I would hope that the board would reconsider its position, admit the violation, and, not have to wait another 10 months for the AG to find that it's a violation to communicate amongst members via email, and that the board would stop that practice wherever it may be occurring. I know there's problems with that practice in other boards, like the Board of Health, and, my interest is in seeing the process improve. So with a violation confirmed in hand, I would think you would want to reconsider your position of denying the new violation, essentially on similar grounds, because it's now been determined that it's an improper thing to have happen. So that,
Just to clarify, though, it was determined in one particular case, and then we just responded in the case that you filed against Mr. Hackinson, correct?
that's
And
correct. So
you're making the assumption
I am.
at this point. Okay, just to
So
clarify.
I had emailed the board, the chair returns emails on behalf of the board. The prior chair, Joe, had responded, including all the members of the board. That was found to be improper. In the more recent case, the new chair, Carl, receiving my email, had responded on behalf of the board, and again, copied all members of the board, which
So-
I believe is
But
improper.
again, just to
Yeah.
clarify, I don't think we're disputing the complaint relative to.
Do you have the complaint article, the letter that was written by the AG's office? No, I would like you to read it, Mr. Morgan, because you're the one that filed it. Read the response that they got back, please. Because I think it's important that they know that, you're saying that I did something egregious. And if you read it, it doesn't say that. So I would like it on the record, seeing that you filed it, you should read it.
Well, again, I think that the decision speaks for itself. It is quite lengthy. If you want it read into the record, I certainly don't object to that. It was resolved. I'm not suggesting it's egregious. All of these administrative matters are things to comply with. That doesn't mean there are, any consequences necessarily. It was determined to be improper, and I can read it if that's the will of the board. I think
well,
you've got a full agenda here.
Is that okay with you,
That's
Joe?
up to
if
the
he's-
vice chair. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have asked you.
Well, do you want him
on
to
your
really read the whole thing, or?
There's a section that he could read that just relates to what they said, that it was a minor infraction and not something that was,
Yeah.
done intently, but it was done, and it was minor infraction.
And I think your summary is a good summary of that.
I just, my point here is only relative to making the conclusion on one based on another. And
Again,
I think at this point, that's your opinion, and I think, from my seat, I would prefer to let the process pursue.
Certainly, the board has the ability to run through the whole process. That's why the process is there.
Right.
I'm just suggesting, in the interest of putting these matters behind, that there be some acknowledgement that this practice should stop of copying board members as a group, and
Well, we'll take your suggestion under advisement.
and secondarily, I wanted to bring to the board's attention, I have a decision here from the Secretary of State's Supervisor of Records regarding the Strategic Planning Committee. Apparently, the board may not be aware, but the town denied it had any documents in response to a public records request for the documents from the town Strategic Planning Committee. So I sent that over to the Secretary of State's office, and I have here a copy of the
I
determination.
have a question, though. Is that a ruling?
Yes, it is.
Is that a ruling?
The ruling is that the town has to make a further response because the first response was inadequate.
Which I believe the town did respond, but.
The town claimed there were no records about the strategic planning meeting, that it was occurring. Now, I would wonder what a strategic planning meeting would be going on with no records or documents, but the whole thing, I think, is a matter of another open meeting complaint. And, whether it's a government body or not, it is required to comply with the public records law. And they tried to deny they had any records whatsoever. So what's that group doing if it has no documents and it's not looking at anything in the meeting? I happened to see the meeting downstairs one night, and there were documents all over the table, so.
Well, I'm not sure that was the point of the response, but I'm just, thank you for pointing it out to us. I'm not sure we want to get into a whole discussion, but
Thank you.
our town council and town manager will respond as appropriate. Is there anybody else want to?
Is that
No, we got
something?
No.
it. We just got it.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, that's why I came down, and I would just, hope that as a final point, in regard to these matters, last year, a year ago, the town manager was attacking me in the newspaper, claiming these are all frivolous. I think there's about 2/3 of them have been found to be with some merit. Whether they're egregious or not is a debate, but they've been found to be of merit, and I would hope the town would clean these up. There's
Well, I think
certainly other
can-
boards.
I think we're
Yeah.
prepared to review what's happened and change accordingly as appropriate, I think is fair to state. So,
Well,
thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone?
Joel Arbeitman, Woodridge Lane. I have, I guess, a question on a unrelated topic before I start what I came up to talk about,
Uh-oh.
now that this has been raised. Is the Strategic Planning Committee, is the charge of the committee something that would be within the purview of the town manager to either accept or deny the recommendation and act within the scope of his office accordingly? The reason I ask this is that committees that are built to act in an advisory capacity to staff, my understanding is, are not subject to the open meeting law as long as
I believe that's the town's position on that.
Oh, it is, okay, so, I'm just not fully understanding
Yeah.
how,
So that's
how that would
why-
even be germane here, but anyway, separate matter. What I wanted to address myself to was even more controversial, and that is that it is, from numerous conversations I've had in town, it is my understanding that pursuant to the legislative modifications to the recent ballot referendum on legalized marijuana, that the town, in towns where a majority of the population voted in favor of that ballot issue, that towns, at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, I guess it is, can either opt to have a ballot referendum to opt out of allowing retail marijuana sales within the community, or they can just let the law stand and basically they would be allowed under the law, if I understand the law
So I
correctly.
just to clarify, we are going to be discussing this later in the agenda, and I do intend to allow people to at least have a short, discussion of it. So I don't suppose I could talk you into waiting for that agenda item.
I'm easy.
Well,
As
but
long
I
as
think we
I
can
could come
say
back,
that
'cause I
that
had some.
statement,
Yeah,
statement that you just made is correct.
It is.
That even if a community, the majority have voted for legalization of marijuana, the community then can have a ballot question to decide to opt out of being able to sell retail marijuana and have retail shops.
Right, and in such communities, that would not be within, it would not be within the purview of the governing body, the selectmen in our town, to make that determination of not allowing
No,
an
that's-
opt-out, but that it would have
that
to
is
go to a
correct.
ballot question.
Yeah, the law, my understanding, my reading of the law says that if the community voted against legalized marijuana, then the Board of Selectmen or Town Council, whatever it might be,
mayor, whatever.
has the ability to make that determination without a referendum. In our case, because we did vote in favor, just like what's happening in Milford tonight, there's a vote in the town of Milford to determine whether they want to opt out, and so we would be doing essentially the same process.
Okay, well, yes, I'm happy
All right,
to
do you want, if you
defer
want
to
to
you.
speak further on the merits, I'd suggest you stay around for our discussion.
Okay, that's great. What I actually want to speak on later on the merits is not pro or con, but rather trying to find some type of community compromise rather than what I anticipate is the board's current direction on this. And I think maybe I can find a happier path for the community.
Okay.
I'd like to propose it later.
All right, thank you.
Happy path, okay.
All right. No one else for citizens' participation? So we have a scheduled hearing at 6:40 for Burger City, the change of hours. So is someone here from Burger City? You want to come? Myra is here, okay.
Bye, thank you, and congratulations.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
So if you just want to present your application or,
I don't have my application.
I can read it out to you. Burger City opened about a year and a half ago, and now would like to start serving breakfast. Currently, the restaurant is not open on Sunday, but this request includes changing that. This modification requests changing the opening time on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 7 a.m. And so now you want to open Sunday at 6 a.m. And actually, your current hours are 11.
My current hours are 11 to 9, and I would like to change them to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh, 6.
From
okay.
6
Okay.
a.m. to 9 p.m. And that is for give the opportunity to start selling breakfast.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, you're now closed Sunday and want to be open from
Yes.
6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yes, sir.
And Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, instead of opening at 11, you want to open at 6.
Yes, sir.
And the others don't, look. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are not changed.
No.
You're at 11 a.m. Okay. So what's our purview here? Do we need this is just a simple change of hours, or?
Yeah, what do you anticipate for serving breakfast?
As soon the selectmen say yes, I would like to start my menu is going to be very simple. Just American breakfast, pancakes, eggs, and toast.
Yeah,
And I believe in a week or two.
very good. Well, your burgers are great, so I
Thank you.
anticipate your
Thank you.
omelets will be as well.
Oh, that will be good.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Vice Chair, I just have a quick question on the Sunday. I'm reading here 7, but the hours actually should be 6 a.m.?
That's what's on here.
Yeah, on this form it's 6.
I think you have it.
Yeah,
One in
is
my
it,
packet.
just to confirm, it is Saturday,
Change from today.
it says here 11 to 7, but it's really 11
Okay.
to 6, right?
Right,
Is that correct?
changing them
6?
from 11 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
start.
Yes.
And just trying to expand business, or is there a rationale behind trying to do this? or-
Let's try to spend business, yes. And we always think about selling breakfast because there's no breakfast in town. And I think it's a good opportunity to have breakfast.
Right?
Now that I'm willing to get up at 5 o'clock in the
I
morning.
was going to say, that's an early start.
Yes.
Okay, so Sunday, 6 to 9, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 6 to 9 as well. Those are the changes that you're looking to have made.
Yes, dear.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments?
No?
Do I hear a
Always-
motion?
Always looking for a good new breakfast place.
There we go.
Yay.
And I don't think, this isn't anything I need to close or anything, right?
No,
We just-
no.
So do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the request for a modification of operating hours for Burger City to now include open Sunday from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. as well.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And do we count Carl as abstaining on this?
Absent.
4-0-1.
So we have
4-0-1
one
absent.
absent,
One
okay.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
Thank
thank you,
you very
Mara.
much.
Make sure you
Good
let
luck.
us know when you start doing that.
totally. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
All right, the next thing we have is Honto requests to have entertainment on Wednesday, November 22nd. Okay, anybody here from,
I think Bobby is here.
Yes.
the day before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Hello. Unfortunately, Ray can't be here. You know, we opened up the other restaurant, Northborough, and he's a little understaffed, so he asked me to come down and, you know, discuss it with you.
Okay, I'm not, do we have material, any details on this request?
We have this,
Just the
request
sheet.
here.
Just the sheet.
Because it's just a one-day.
It's a one-day.
It's a one-day
That's- I mean,
request for a special license.
We totally could.
Okay, someone want to read the details? I don't seem to have that.
Well,
with me.
it says here that you want to modify the live entertainment on Wednesday, November 11th.
22nd.
I'm
It says the 11th, but it's
Yeah,
actually the
it's
22nd.
Right. For, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, from 8:30 to 11:30. Is that right, Bob?
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
right.
Sounds right? Okay.
Okay, and that's usually there, okay. So we're a special late night and,
Right, well, this is for live entertainment.
okay.
They have entertainments on Fridays and Saturdays, 3 days a month.
And
So
remind
this
me,
is
do
just a
we
step.
have but is there different kinds of entertainment, right? Didn't we have?
No, we've given them a
Oh,
full.
okay.
They have a full entertainment license, it's
Remember
just,
that.
they're asking for an additional day, which is,
Okay.
they have to get a special permit, and that's what this is all about.
All right.
The only questions that I would ask, Bob, is what is the capacity? Is it 125 for patrons inside that location?
You know what? I don't have that information.
The only reason why I asked that, you know that it's crazy.
Yeah,
And
it
there may
is.
be more, there may be 150, I'm not sure. And if it's like the other places that, you know, that have things going on that Wednesday night, I would just hope that somebody's at the door either keeping a count on
No,
it.
we're
so that-
definitely having somebody working the door that night,
Okay,
and I'm sure he'll be keeping track of how many people come in. I do believe it's more than you know.
I wasn't sure if it's
150.
125 or 150, I know it's in that ballpark, so,
Yeah, but you know, we will definitely have somebody working the door.
okay. And that's, the kids from college are coming home too, so.
Yeah, the
I
night
hope- I
before
hope that-
Thanksgiving.
Are you guys gonna be utilizing a license ID scanner?
Actually, you know what? We've been really good about grabbing fake IDs.
Mhm.
We do have some behind the bar that, and we go reference them
Okay,
to, you know, over the years that I've been doing it, I can, you know, I'm getting pretty good at recognizing fake IDs, and we don't really take out-of-state IDs, which is good, you know, and especially if they're younger. Obviously, if somebody older, I mean, you know, that's fine. But the door guy that we have does bring them to me if they're out of state and have me look, and if they are fake, I grab them.
okay. Those are the only two questions I have.
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with Joe. You know, it's a popular night for the college crowd coming home, and you know, certainly, you know, be concerned about over-serving and being
Right.
aware of overindulgence, I guess,
Right.
would be the concern, right? So.
Oh yeah, especially me being beyond the bar. That's a big concern of mine also. So, you know, we definitely try to, you know, keep that under control.
All right, thank you. Any other
Just
questions?
one. So Bobby, are you now one of the managers listed on the paperwork?
I'm not, no.
So with Ray being out so much, who's the new, has another manager been added?
Well, there's Henry. That's
Okay.
one of the managers, but he just left today to go to China for 2 weeks, so he's not there. Actually, my wife Julie is the active manager there for the next 2 weeks, so until he gets back.
So we need you guys to write something to us and let us know that, because part of the liquor license says who's gonna be the manager and who's gonna be there.
Okay.
And if the people that are on the liquor license are not there, it's important that we have something that tells us who the manager is,
Okay.
with Ray being out so much.
Right. Usually,
And Jen, if we could have Susan follow up tomorrow.
Making a note right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions or comments? So do I have a discussion? Any objection? Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the request to host live music on Wednesday, November 22nd, from 8:30 to 11:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, one absent. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And
Congratulations.
if you're on that Wednesday, come on down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's playing?
The Getaway. Good band. Good classic rock music. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So our next schedule is a presentation on our water treatment plant. So Doug's here, I guess.
We have ours already. Yeah, we have ours. Thank you.
Does everybody have one already? Okay. Everyone on the computer.
Unless they change the presentation.
Hi, Doug Small, DPW Director, Town of Ashland.
Good evening, Douglas.
Before I get started, just want to say, Joe, great job Saturday. Ashland Day was awesome. Steve, kudos to you for the farmer's market. Saturday was quite a day, you know, being a resident. And
Big day,
I
yeah.
parked over at Front Street and walked all the way through and back. And it was-
Oh,
it was
good for
great.
you.
Yeah, and I ran into Steve down at the Ashland Res, so it's a big Ashland Day. It was great. Great job, guys. Great job.
If I may, Vice Chair. Douglas, I just want to thank you and your staff for helping us out and get everything ready prior to. The field was in great shape. I couldn't ask for a better group of guys to come and help us out, get everything ready for on Friday.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you to your staff. And
Yeah, you made it easy for us, Joe, on that, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I get started on this, on Joe's presentation here, this is a long time coming, having Woodard and Curran present to the Board of Selectmen. I don't recall the last time that we've actually had a presentation from them to the board. Woodard and Curran, they operate and maintain our water treatment facility. It's a major component to the town of Ashland, and you rarely hear anything about this plant. If not, you never do. And that's due to Woodard and Curran doing such a great job. In particular, these two gentlemen that are here today, Joe Gary and Jeff Fournier. I got to know, they've been, the town hired Woodard and Curran probably, I think it was back in 2003 is when they started. They've been with us ever since. I didn't have much of a background in water back in the early 2000s, but come 2007, when we started running into the water shortages, that's when I got to know Joe Gary here, and Joe educated me on water treatment and quality and things like that, and all the mechanical issues at the plant, the water shortages, so on and so forth. There's so much to this. But personally, I just want to thank Joe for being so patient with me and really in protecting the town of Ashland throughout all those years. And Joe has since moved on, and now he's the regional boss for Woodard and Curran. And now we have Jeff, and Jeff has been in and out of the plant since 2003 as well. So we have two highly qualified gentlemen working for us. And with that said, here's Joe Gary from Woodard and Curran.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time for a very short presentation.
Sure.
I just want to tell you who we are, what we do, a little bit about your facility. One of the reasons is, we sign contracts from time to time. Our contract is up in June of next year. So this contract will go out to be competitively bid again. And I thought it might be a good idea, at least for you guys, to meet us once before that happens, because like Doug said, usually if you don't know a lot, you don't hear a lot from the water treatment plant, it means things are good.
Yeah.
So, let me see if I can get this going. This is Okay, I see what I'm doing, never mind.
This says 2016, so is this,
I just pointed that out too.
Yeah, it was from last year.
that's from last year? Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure, okay.
So our company has 11,000 employees, 1,000 employees in 28 offices in 13 states. We have over 220 certified operators and over 750 engineers and scientists. So something that you get with Woodard and Curran when you hire them, it's not just people who operate the facility, but we have people in the background who are engineers and people in the background who do instrumentation and controls and so forth. And so we're a pretty integrated firm as far as that goes. We can offer a lot of services to different towns. I'll go the right way here. So that's our organization chart from 2017. It just shows the different plants that we have throughout the country and different support services that we have. We have O&M specialists, people who come in and help us if there's a problem that we can't fix, and also engineers that can answer questions that we may have as well. This doesn't seem to be wanting to move.
So try,
Sounds like me after Ashland.
It's moving down here, but it's not moving.
Their specialty is water.
Yeah, exactly.
Just try it from the beginning again.
That's incredible, 10 billion gallons of water.
Hold on a second. This is
Going through.
talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. Feel free.
Fun with
Get up and
technology.
stretch out if you
There we
need to.
go.
Okay.
There you go.
So we began operating with a partnership with the town of Ashland in 2003. We provided emergency operations when the town could not find certified operators. So we have a full-time staff of 3 certified operators there. It's 7-day per week coverage. There's somebody always there from 6 to 2 or 7 to 3. And we're on call 24 hours a day, so we have alarming systems at the facility. If the plant is running and nobody's there, we get a phone call, we go in and check out what's going on. We can also operate the facility remotely too. So if we have to shut something down, we shut it down. There's also fail-safes there. If certain alarm set points are set off, it shuts down automatically. The facility's produced over 10 billion gallons of water since 2006. So when we got to the plant couldn't keep operating. There was a lot of wasted water, there were wasted chemicals, there was wasted electricity. The town was facing pressure from DEP to reduce their water use. The SCADA system, which is the control system there, wasn't fully functional, and it was rated as a grade 4 facility. So what's important about the grade 4 facility thing is if it's rated as a grade 4, that has to be manned for 2 shifts per day. So that's why the town had such a hard time finding people, because they needed people there 7 days a week from 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. By changing some of the control systems there at the plant and getting things operating smoothly, we were able to have DEP come in, and they downgraded the plant to a grade 3 plant, which enabled us to operate at only 8 hours a day manned. So that was a big money saver by doing that. So in this org chart here, I'm the area manager. I have 4 other facilities besides Ashland. Jeff Fournier is a full-time grade 4 operator. Steve Turner, full-time grade 4, and the lead operator is Wayne Pyron. He's also a grade 4. A grade 4 is the highest certification that you can get in the state of Massachusetts, so you have some pretty qualified people working there. So what we did was, when we came in, some of the accomplishments, we optimized the chemical regimen. We put in controls on pumps. We fixed some of the faulty equipment with the ozone system, which improved water quality. We reduced water use. We reduced electricity use. We got the lagoons across the street operating efficiently so that they wouldn't have to be cleaned out as often. And we got the plant to be fully operational. So we reduced a lot of unaccounted for water and the percentage of water loss. So we're 100% in treatment compliance. We saved over 180 million gallons a year by changing the way that those filters and clarifiers were backwashed. And we've also done a freeze-thaw cycle now for the sludge. We haven't had to clean those lagoons out since we've operated on that freeze-thaw cycle. So that saves the town about $45,000 every 2 to 3 years. We've cut down enormously on the amount of chemicals that we add in the water. We are no longer adding a chemical called ferric chloride because we found it really wasn't needed. And we get great results not using it. We also cut down on the amount of polymer that we use. There's very little treatment besides the ozone that takes place at that facility. So those 16 hours a day of unmanned operation saves about $72,000 a year for one person working now. So as I said before, we received the approval for automated operations. We completely overhauled the ozone oxidation system. That's improved water quality immensely. We've installed the Tide Flex mixing valve on the Cedar Street tank, and that keeps water flowing in and out of that tank better so that it doesn't get as stagnant. And we completed a mandated retrofit of safety controls for the chemical feed system to prevent any kind of accidental overfeeding. Health and safety-wise, we have had no lost time injury for almost 2,000 days. We're compliant with all the OSHA-required training. Every staff member in the facility is first aid and CPR certified. We share a lot of resources with the town. We have a very, very good relationship with Doug, with Roy Correa. Known him for a long time. We help each other out, and I think it's a really, really good partnership. So some of the regulatory stuff, I'm going to get into a lot of boring acronyms here, but the ASR, that's the annual statistical report, which you pretty much have to submit to DEP telling them well, how much water you pumped, how many chemicals you used, just all about your system has to be submitted every year. The consumer confidence report, we work with the town in putting that together. That goes out to every customer that we have on the system. We meet all EPA requirements for water quality, which includes the Pollution Discharge Permit, DEP sampling, groundwater rule, Water Management Act, and Safe Drinking Water Act. State reports are submitted on time each month. We submitted an application for another permit for our lagoons. And we also, last year, successfully did pass the lead and copper rule sampling as well. So a couple other things that we bring a SEMS report program. So we have a computerized maintenance system at the facility. So all of the maintenance items, anything that's on a schedule is programmed in there and pops up on a calendar telling the guys when to do it. We're going to be installing an H2O WIMS process control system there to better manage the state reports. That's going to help Jeff out more. We use do forms up there, which instead of carrying around a little pad of paper or write stuff down, it's entered into a tablet. That tablet, all the information about the equipment gets fed back into this maintenance management software so you can keep track on when the last time this was repaired, how old it is, what kind of oil it takes. All those things are all computerized. We have a Workday employee management system that the company's using. We do recruiting whenever we have a person who's left the plant. We do lots of safety training. It's really, really important to the company. We do a safety module every month of probably 8 or 10 other items that Jeff has to get complete during the year. And then we also help Doug out with the asset management and capital planning. We help him prepare capital items, tell him what's going to be coming up in the next few years, and what's going to need to be repaired and how much money we think it's going to cost, etc. So some of the improvements that we've done, clarifier and filter basin media rehabilitation, we did that at kind of in-house using Woodard and Curran labor, where we took all the old media, all the carbon out of the old filters, replaced that with new carbon. That was done a couple years ago, and we have them on schedule now to be replaced every so many years. The raw water wells now are on an rotating schedule for cleaning. After a while, those wells lose their the amount of water they can pump because of buildup of iron and manganese. They have to be cleaned, so we have those on schedules. We have upgraded all the chemical feed systems, and we've done a lot on the electrical pump controls. We've done certain electrical saving things like having a certain pump shut off when a backwash pump turns on, so that our demand for that day, because the electric company looks at your peak demand for the day. So when we have an event like a backwash, we'll have other equipment shut off during that backwash so that we shave that demand down. And this plant is an industry-recognized treatment plant. Jeff just had an article published in TPO magazine, Creative Storage Tank and Distribution System Pump Strategy, Reduces Water Age. Jeff's kind of got this down to a science where he's got fresh water going into the system all the time. It helps our chlorine residuals out. It keeps our disinfectant byproducts down. He's done a great job with that. Manganese removal, we use ozone to do that. It's the most cost-effective way to control the contaminant. We've had no service operations occur throughout last year. And Jeff controls the directional flow in the distribution system and maintains, like I said, the water in those storage tanks. And there was also an article done on the plant about trimming the energy demand that was published in Water World magazine in 2011. So that's us. We're Woodard and Curran. I'm Joe Gary. That's Jeff. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or if you ever want to come by for a tour.
Love to take a tour.
I was just thinking the same thing. I know at one point, many years ago, I got a beginning of a tour, but I'd love to do the whole thing.
Great,
would
yeah.
too.
Get in
Yeah.
touch with Doug, or Doug will put you in touch with us, and
Okay.
be happy to show you it.
Great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for your
you
time.
sharing
Yeah,
this.
just,
Thank
I
you.
think water, of course, is, people assume that's gonna be well-run, and no news is good news, so it's good to get it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Look at it. I just wanted I guess, Doug, from your point of view, so is this pretty typical that these services are contracted out? Because I think most people would think that the water operators are town employees, but I guess, is this pretty typical? This kind of seems very specialized, so I guess I'm not surprised that it's contracted.
Yeah, it's fairly common. Like in eastern Massachusetts, I think we run 5 water treatment systems for communities, and a whole bunch of wastewater treatment systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's more common on the wastewater side of things than it is the water side of things. But it depends, you see an uptick, and then somebody might have a bad experience with a private contractor, and they may get bad press, and then you see a downtick, and people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We like to have it so that, we think it's a great partnership. We've been there a long time now. The two of the guys who were involved in that project from day one are in this room. So that plant was, I think, only online about a year and a half before we got there.
Or the latest upgrade to it was online.
Right. And so there was, at the time, the town was having a lot of trouble finding certified operators.
Sure.
That was the big thing. I think they were constantly being stolen by Framingham, and then they'd come back, and it was back and forth.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. I guess our management team will be reviewing. When did you say the contract's up? Is it?
June 30th, 2018.
Okay, so coming up soon, so.
Just one quick question, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Vice Chair. Joe, with respect to, and Doug, with respect to the things that we've had happening, weather-wise and stuff, the inclement weather or severe weather issues, emergency planning, should something happen, I take it that the plant is only manned till 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Correct.
So from 3 to the following morning, it's unattended, but I'm sure there are things in valves or alarms that will trigger off. What type of response plan do you folks have in ready, just in case something should happen at the plant?
Well, during like weather events like that, we're in close communications with Doug all the time. You know, we kind of play it by ear. During that bad winter, we were there longer usually, just because we had to shuffle the place out, to be honest with you. But we have an emergency action plan at the plant that was done that covers everything from a pandemic to bad weather to a blizzard to the bird flu, and that all comes down through the company's training.
And potential of equipment failure, and maybe an overflow of product into the water and things of that nature. Is there a process or a system that's set up, or a plan set up for?
This protocol that covers that. All the equipment at the plant is redundant. So, you know, in other words, we have 3 pumps going to Ashland, 2 pumps going to Hopkinton. We have everything has redundancy. We have 2 emergency generators at the plant that are all those are maintained by an outside company.
If one go, you have backup.
So okay.
Yeah.
That's my main concern more than anything else, with things that have been happening. It's just
All plants are designed to have a redundant system.
okay.
Yeah, what we usually do, I mean, if there's going to be an event like that we think is going to be bad, we not only talk to Doug and guys at DPW, but internally our company will do that. Okay, if you get into a jam, you're going to call this guy, and who do you have to cover if something happens at this place? And we mobilize. We even do things during bad events, like we have several operation and maintenance specialists who live down south. If we're expecting a real bad storm up here, they'll drive up 2 or 3 days before it gets here, and they'll just be here on call just in case something happens.
And I'm sure you do the same in reciprocal.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we had extra people in Florida last week, yeah.
How long do the generators last? I mean,
Probably a few
run
days.
time. So, I mean, in Florida, there's still places that have no power. So is that something that you would be prepared for, should that happen here, that there's no power for a week at a time?
There's 2 generators here on site. They're both capable of running over 2 days each. Fuel.
On fuel.
Fuel. Oh, so they're not the natural gas ones like we have
No.
at the schools. Okay.
That's good to know.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
And I
Thanks,
thought that was
Doug.
thanks, Doug. Thanks for bringing it, this is the kind of thing we like to hear about, what's going on. Well, we should, on that, we should probably organize a tour.
Yeah, we could do that.
I'm sure there's other people would be interested as well, kind of see what the equipment
Absolutely.
is like.
Love to.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is a presentation by Tricome Health. This is a presentation to the Ashland Board of Selectmen for a proposed registered marijuana dispensary. And so the way I see things, do you have a presentation to make?
We do.
Okay.
But we're not going to use the PowerPoint. It's all just me us talking.
So
Yeah.
one thing before we get into it, I think you're going to make a presentation, and I'm just looking at the board, and I think, is there folks in the audience who want to talk on this particular item? Because we will have, okay, so we have at least 2 people. Sure. So I don't know, what's the sense of the board? Do you want to have folks respond first and then have our discussion, or?
I would say let's get all the questions asked first and then
Okay,
have
and then
discussion
we'll,
after
okay,
that.
so go ahead, sir.
Great, thank you. My name is Philip Silverman. I'm an attorney for Tricome Health. Tricome is here tonight seeking a letter of support or non-opposition to the operation of a medical marijuana dispensary over at 40 Pond Street. That's in the Commercial Highway Zoning District, which is the appropriate zoning district within the zoning bylaws of the town. Just by way of background, this letter is required as part of the licensing process for the Department of Public Health in order to get a registered marijuana dispensary license. You should understand this is really just the beginning of this process. If we were to obtain a letter of support or non-opposition to the operation of this facility, we still have to go through a long state process. You've got to go through an architectural review of your facility, a security review, operational review, It's a months-long process, and then we still have to go also through local permitting process. There's a special permit process here before the planning board, building permits, et cetera. And I think Mr. Mason, the CEO, will correct me if I'm wrong. Even if we were to get the letter of support or non-opposition, we're probably 12 to 18 months before you would see such a facility open here at that location. The other thing that I think is important to stress to everybody, and especially in light of the gentleman that was speaking earlier, we're here to talk about a medical dispensary. This is not talking about adult use or recreational.
I think the reason that's next on our agenda.
I understand.
Okay.
Listen, we'll be listening and be interested in that. But the truth is, the business model that this gentleman has been involved in is for medical only. And I understand. I've been around to a number of towns in the Commonwealth. This is an issue that's coming up everywhere, and there's a concern. Well, if we allow medical, what happens with adult use and recreational? This company is prepared to tell you if we are allowed to go forward with the medical, we will be entering into a community host agreement with the town that details the terms of that operation, and we would put in it that we would not be doing recreational unless we came before you again and you were to give permission to do it. So I just like to get that out in the open so that there's some comfort level and we can just talk about the medical operation tonight, because that's really what our focus is. So before we go further into the details of how it would operate in this community, I'm going to introduce you to the CEO of the company, Alex Mason, and he's going to tell you about himself and the company, and then I'll come back and give you some more detail about the operational details of the program.
Okay.
Please.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. I like to always start off by telling you a little bit about myself and the team that we've put together to really execute on fulfilling this task at hand and establishing ourselves as medical dispensaries in the state of Massachusetts. I'll start off with myself and my own background. I grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and attended school in the Boston area at Babson College in Wellesley. I say that because I know Ashland very well. I did the commute for 4 years from Worcester into Wellesley every day, and along Route 9, so I know this area very well. From a professional standpoint, I spent 10 years as a consultant in the healthcare sector, specifically focused on emerging markets and emerging technologies, helping big, large pharma and biotech companies around the world strategize on their future plans on new drug developments and things of that nature. And then 4 years ago, I started a company where we manufacture silicone accessory products for the vaporizer industry in the medical device space. And so when I started this endeavor 18 months ago, that background sort of felt like the right fit, both corporate and entrepreneurial backgrounds, to execute on this task at hand. The reason I decided to pursue this is because from a professional healthcare standpoint, I do know that there are medical benefits to marijuana for numerous different therapies out there. The one that probably stands out closest to me, only because I've encountered so many people and have had so many conversations, are veterans with PTSD. To be frank, the regimens we're trying to put them through, the medical regimens they're trying to be put on, there's a reason there are 600,000 veterans in the United States addicted to opioids. There's a reason 850,000 veterans in the U.S. deal with extreme PTSD. And speaking with many people with many different issues, to me, you can't deny someone the ability to feel better. And I truly believe that medical marijuana has a place for many, many people who seek it. And so we started this process 18 months ago, and I put together what I believe to be a top team to execute on this task. I say that not lightly, because as I stand here, I can tell you that the Department of Health, we are the fastest approved team in the state of Massachusetts to date. I think because everyone brings unique skill sets and backgrounds to really execute. And I keep mentioning that because this is about execution and doing it correctly. For example, Ken Wolf, he is former police officer of the Cambridge Police Department. He is our Director of Security. He spent 25 years in the regulatory and security sector. He's worked with clients from high-end jewelry stores to big biotechs in the Cambridge area. So, you know, that's our background on our head of security. Our Director of Cultivation, Ben Nadolny, has been a medical grower in the state of Oregon for 10 years. He currently operates a 30,000 square foot facility. Our facility would be located in Lakeville. He will spend the majority of his time there. He is moving, him and his entire family are moving to Massachusetts in January from Oregon. He also is a Michelin-rated chef, where he was the executive chef of King Estate for 10 years. It's the largest Pinot Grigio grower in all of the United States. But I bring that up because at the end of the day, to be a Michelin-rated chef and to run a kitchen of that caliber and to have 3 weddings on a Saturday in the July requires extreme management skill. And it doesn't matter what field you are in, when you reach the top, it is validating that you are dedicated to your craft. And that's why I bring that up about Ben. And then lastly, our CFO, Pat Clark. Pat Clark grew up on Cape Cod. He is a CFA certified. He was an investment banker here in Boston for IRM for nearly 10 years. He currently now operates a company called Cape Clasp, where they partner with nonprofits in Cape Cod, helping the National Seashore and the shark conservations, and they give back 15% of profits to all charities. So that's a quick overview of our background and of our team and why we feel like we're the right people to execute on this task.
Okay, thank you.
This may be the first time anybody's been before you to sort of talk about this type of an industry. So let me sort of explain to you what this is and what it isn't. I like to say that it's a pharmacy, but it isn't a pharmacy. It's a pharmacy in the sense that you are dispensing medicine to qualified Massachusetts patients. But it isn't a pharmacy in the sense that if you go down to your CVS, anybody can walk into a CVS. That is not the case with this facility. This is what they term a limited access facility. So the only way that an individual can access this facility is a patient has to go to a doctor and has to get a recommendation from a doctor that says that you would benefit from medical marijuana. You have to take that recommendation to the Department of Public Health. The Department of Public Health then has to give you a registration card. You have to bring that registration card to the facility. You don't even get in the front door without showing that card at the front of that facility. You then get buzzed in through a door into what's called a sally port. This is like what you might see at a correctional facility. You get in, the door closes behind you, you don't get into the next door until you show that to security personnel behind a window who then checks you with the state's database. If you check in, yes, you exist on that database. They also have to check that you have not received more than your allotted 60-day supply. If that checks in, you then get into the facility. You would get into, at that point, a sales floor where you receive patient education. That's your first visit, and they try to explain to you, the different types of medicine that there are, and try to help you figure out for your particular ailment what is most likely to help you, because there are a number of different types of medicine, different ways of taking the medicine, and different blends of the medicine as well. That particular building that we're talking about has a very layered security outline. I can't go too deep into the security aspect because we're in a public forum. We've spoken to your police chief and will continue, by the way, to work with your police chief to develop these plans according to his specifications. But just some broad details. The entire outside of that facility is covered by cameras, so you know who's coming to that facility. Every portion in the interior of the facility where marijuana is handled or stored also has cameras. You cannot get access beyond that sales floor unless you have identification as one of the employees. The product, basically there's no access to that product either. It sits in the back of the store. It's prepackaged. If you order it, somebody brings it out and gives it to you. You don't get to just rummage around and find what you want, put it in your pocket. It doesn't work like that. It's very regulated so that you only get what you order. There are redundant alarm systems. If one alarm goes out, there's another backup. It goes direct to the police station. That's required by state law. At the end of each day, all product goes into a storage vault, and often within that vault in safes. And the idea here is, if there is somebody, for example, at midnight who has an ill intent here and is coming at your facility, that facility is monitored 24/7. There's on-site security during business hours, but it's monitored 24/7. You're going to see that individual coming. If that individual finds a way to get in, there's too many doors to get through. It's hard to get into that vault. It's 20 or 30 minutes before they could ever even hope to access that material, and by the time they do that, the local authorities are well on the way. So Massachusetts has really done a phenomenal job in terms of the regulation and the security aspects of this. I had suggested to your police chief, go call some of the other police chiefs in the 12 locations where these are currently operating. You won't hear a complaint. It's really worked very well so far. That's not to say that we all don't have a lot to learn, and we're looking forward to working with the police chief, as I said, to develop procedures that meet his requirements. But by and large, everybody's had positive things to say about how this is operating thus far.
I would also like to add that since the inception of the medical marijuana program in Massachusetts, there hasn't been a single incident in Massachusetts for any reason, whether that is someone walking in incorrectly or to the extremes. There's been nothing. In fact, one location in Brookline, Netta, was actually able to help solve a crime across the street because of the footage that they captured. I think that's something we should be proud of. Massachusetts has the strictest security regulations in the entire country.
How do you transport from, you mentioned your growing facility would be in Lakeville. Mm-hmm. And is that facility dedicated to this proposed facility in?
Yes. So in the state of Massachusetts, under the medical program, we are required, every medical product that we would sell at this dispensary, we would have to produce at our location and transport it. Transporting, there's pages of regulations on how to transport. It's transported by an unmarked vehicle. Within that vehicle, there is a cage that's sort of welded into the vehicle that's on a lock. Product would probably be delivered 2 days a week. We would have to gauge what the supply and the demand was within the retail dispensary. It would be transported by 2 unarmed employees. One will remain in the vehicle at all times while the other would help unload. Our goal is to identify what is necessary to keep the store sustainable for 3 days, nothing more than that. Overstock of inventory will remain in our facility.
Okay. So the facility is both cultivation and manufacturing?
I would say those words are interchangeable, cultivation and manufacturing.
Manufacturing of?
This facility or the Lakeville facility?
Well, the Lakeville facility.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
When you talk about manufacturing...
Well, when I think of manufacturing, I'm taking, let's say, the plant and making it into possibly something else.
That's correct.
Yeah. And you're right to call it manufacturing. In the state of Massachusetts, it is identified as manufacturing. But in Oregon, it's identified as agriculture. But as you once the plant is harvested, there are other products that can emerge from that, and that processing would also be done in Lakeville. The only thing we are seeking to do in Ashland is a dispensary for medical purposes.
Okay.
Just briefly again, the last thing I'd mention on security is all employees, anybody that works here is background checked thoroughly. And in addition, there's a process, what's called seed to sale tracking. When that plant starts growing in Lakeville, a barcode goes on it, and it is consistently over time weighed, inventoried, all the way up until it's processed into, for example, an oil, okay, where there's the oil is extracted, that's inventoried with a barcode, and you follow it all the way through to dispensing. If something is missing at some point, you're going to be able to figure out where it was the last time before it went missing, and then you have the cameras, you're going to be able to find out who took it too. So it's very well as I said, it's well regulated, and the intent is to be able to follow everything so that there isn't internal diversion.
And as Phil may have did mention about packaging, everything's packaged in child-safe packaging, and nothing is out on the floor. Nobody walks around with a basket and fills it up and then goes to the register. All those child-proof packaging will be then packaged into a larger bag for child-proof security, and then handed to the patient right before they exit the facility. We anticipate that after the first visit, a patient's visit should be no more than 5 to 7 minutes. They should be aware of what products work for them, and over time will continue to become more and more understanding, and over time we will make it more and more easy, quicker for them to sort of put in their order so they can come in, pick up, and leave. The way the dispensary will be designed, and as you may know, 40 Pond Street is a parcel of land that we would be building. The way the floor plan would appear, you enter from one side and you exit out the other. And so it's a very clear flow of how the patient needs to go through. There's no time to hang around. There's no consumption on premise to the residents. There's no outside billboards with big green neon lights showcasing what's going on. That is not allowed in the state of Massachusetts, even if that was an idea of ours, which it's not. I think that is horrible. I think that's the detriment of the industry itself sometimes. And if no one was looking for this dispensary, they would drive by and they wouldn't know the difference.
What would be the hours of operation and the days that you requested?
Well,
I'm sorry.
If they're finished,
Finished,
I'm
I
happy
can
to
also-
open
Okay.
it to questions, so.
Okay.
No, I like having an open dialogue.
Sure.
Well,
we'll start
I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you may have been
not
done.
at all.
I'm sorry.
Please.
The hours of operation, the regulations require that the dispensary close at sundown. So during longer days of sun, we will be open a little bit later. But I envision operations would probably be from 9 a.m. to about 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.
All right. So Steve, why don't you go ahead?
A couple of questions. Is medical marijuana, is it tailored to specific conditions?
So,
Can you
sure.
describe that a little bit? And
We can. So, just by way of background, I got into this because my father-in-law is a doctor at Mass General Hospital who convinced me to get involved with this. And as he would explain it to you, there isn't enough research that's been done, and so a lot of the research that is being done by dispensaries who are talking to patients and finding out what is working and what is not working for them. But what we call marijuana actually consists of several different compounds, and the two most widely known are THC, which a lot of people are familiar with, and CBD, which people aren't. CBD has been shown to have tremendous benefits in terms of pain relief. But the truth is, it's different blends of the two that have a different impact on different illnesses. And they're finding out more every day about, all right, if this person is suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, we've found that 15% CBD and 85% THC has been really good for them. And so you'll try that with the patient.
But who's determining that? I mean, you know,
So,
you have
yeah,
your principal team is impressive, but there's
Yeah.
really no medical professional on
Yeah,
staff.
as Phil pointed out, the lack of research on the medical side is very limited. One of the reasons and what interests me so much about getting involved in this industry and specifically in the Massachusetts market, first of all, Massachusetts is the Silicon Valley of healthcare. So what better place to pursue medical marijuana than Massachusetts? And our bigger overall mission is to continuously learn from patients, because there's no other way we can research in today's FDA-regulated market here in the United States, besides working closely with patients. So what our plans are is to work closely with patients, provide them mobile apps and applications where when they consume at home, within that minute, they can say when they consumed, what they consumed, why they consumed, multiple methods of consumption, by the way. Why they consumed, what were the results of that consumption, how did they feel, to incentivize patients to do that. Of course, most patients won't just do it freely. So what we do is the next time they come back into this dispensary, they would get a micro discount, 5%. And every time they provide us feedback on these medical products, we would continue to provide them those discounts. And the overall big picture here is to really collect data from multiple years and to say, okay, this specific strain, women over the age of 35 who are dealing with cancer and have a side effect of some sort of pain or eating disorder, have all said that this is working. And we're seeing that because the data is being collected. That is the real vision of where I want to take this and really identify and hone in what strains are working for what patient populations.
Okay, so my last question is relative to the model. The viability of medical, just a pure medical facility in an environment where recreational is going to be opened within, another year and a half roughly.
Yeah.
So what's you're confident that your business model is going to sustain itself and you're not going to come back here in 6 years and say we need to now get into recreational marijuana?
So 6 years is we don't have enough data to show what happens to medical markets when recreational begins. What we do know is 3 to 4 year old markets, such as Colorado that we look at, right? They have a thriving medical market alongside with recreational. So, I believe the two can go side by side, and as we learn more, we will be able to really hone in on who our patient customers are, so to speak, and they will stay true to us. I also believe that, quite honestly, I did not vote for recreational. I do not think recreational is going to emerge like it has emerged in Colorado or Oregon or Washington because of the control that the local municipalities get to have for this industry. I believe it will actually incentivize and drive the medical market and make people realize that they should become patients, and that would create a larger market. So yes, I do believe that our business model in the medical space is sustainable even when recreational comes online.
I'll give you a sort of a side-by-side explanation of why that's true, and why it's happening in Colorado. You need to remember, in Massachusetts, the recreational marijuana has a 20% tax associated with it. Medical marijuana does not have a tax. And what they found in Colorado is people that are medical patients will continue to purchase through the medical dispensaries because they like to save the money.
I also want to add that the biggest issue we're seeing right now in the state of Massachusetts is just the lack of supply. There's 40,000 patients already. The Department of Health estimates there might be 120,000 by 2020. With 12 dispensaries, there's just not enough medication for patients right now. And until we break that threshold from a pure business standpoint, until we meet that demand, the supply will not go towards recreational consumers. And that is going to be true for many, many years.
Thank you.
Other, Joe?
I do. As you know, some of the local towns, one tonight, and there are other towns that are looking to have medical marijuana dispensaries in their area, in their towns.
Recreation.
One is a medical as well, and I'm sure they'll be looking for a recreational very soon. I guess my question would be is the competition status of, why do we need, an influx of multiple locales for medical marijuana if there aren't that many patients right now? And secondly, and again, this is my own personal view, and nothing against what you guys are trying to do. You talked about dispensaries that have special securities, this and that. Why couldn't the hospitals do that? Because I would think that the medical dispensaries for medical marijuana would be better served at a hospital than at another locale.
It's not legal, and hospitals won't touch it because a lot of them are federally funded, and it's not legal federally. They just won't do it.
Okay, so if it's not legal federally, we'll make it legal state, and then what?
Can you repeat your question?
No, that was just a rhetorical comment, that's all. I've been a cop for 38 years, so I'm trying to keep an open mind on this. Okay?
Understood.
All
Understood.
right, it's not easy.
Yolanda?
Couple of questions, and then.
Are you finished, Joe? or
Are you all
just-
set?
No, go ahead, I'm
If-
fine.
did
We
you
can
have
come
others?
back to this.
No, I'll come
Okay.
back, it's okay.
So where else besides Ashland are you looking to place, or right now you only looking here in Ashland?
We are speaking with the towns of Ashland, Tewksbury, Auburn, and Lakeville.
Are we the first one that you're presenting to, or?
No.
Okay.
This
And
would
what,
be-
can I ask what the response has been from those other communities?
So we have received 3 letters of non-opposition.
Okay.
One for cultivation in Lakeville, one for dispensing in Lakeville. And sorry, there's also Westminster on there as well.
Okay.
And we have received a letter of non-opposition from the town of Auburn for cultivation. We are going back to them for dispensary.
Okay.
And then, sorry, I forgot.
Westminster.
And then Westminster, we received a letter of non-opposition actually a week ago.
For the dispensary?
For the dispensary as
Okay.
well.
Okay. And wherever you land, will this be your first
Yes,
dispensary?
it would be my intentions, yes, it would.
Okay, and would you be looking to expand? If you get one dispensary, would you be looking to expand to more?
Within the community of Ashland?
No, not within Ashland, just in general.
Those
So like,
are
you
the
know,
markets we would like to target.
Okay.
The reason this wasn't randomly selected.
Okay.
We looked at voting demographics, we looked at commuter routes, we looked at towns that actually zone this fairly.
Okay.
Some of these towns have zoned them in deep industrial pockets where I just don't think it is right or fair for a patient to have to be so secluded and pushed into a heavy industrial park for them to go get their medication.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also only limited to 3
Yes.
Locations. You
Oh,
can't
okay,
have
so
more than 3
your business, you
licenses.
can only have 3, okay.
State regulation.
Okay. The other question, or the other comment, and I think the location that you're looking at, it says the property is not located within 750 feet of a daycare facility, playground, public park, or public forest. You may want to double check. We're in the process of creating a section of the Upper Charles Trail, which will go right across Route 126. I don't know if it's within 750 feet, but pretty close. So you may want to double check that before you go
So
much.
And do you think that
Public parks are
qualifies?
not.
Well, it says here,
It's their
playground,
Oh,
public park,
it's a
it's
local.
part of our local bylaws. So, I mean, I'm sure the planning board, if and when you get to them, will
I
certainly
think,
keep you to task.
I think that's
but-
an issue we would
Yeah.
talk to them about. Probably on a technical basis, we're probably okay, because if it's not existing now, we're probably okay. But listen, as I said, this is the beginning of the process.
Right.
And we would certainly have to discuss that issue with
Our
them.
intentions here tonight on receiving a letter of support or non-opposition is not to say here, okay, once we get this, we're here to stay. It's to say, okay, now we feel a little more comfortable making the necessary investments to apply for special permitting, to understand what can and cannot be done on the location that we've identified. It's just to make us feel a little more comfortable before we put in the capital that is going to be required for us to really go and say, this is the official plan.
Okay. You may want to let them know that we're not going to take a
Why
vote.
don't we open it up to public comment and questions, and people can decide if they want to follow up, or?
We should probably let you know that we will probably not be taking a vote tonight because our chair is not here. I don't know if anyone has let you know that, but just that we won't make you come back when we do have a full board to make a decision.
We're happy to come back, too.
But just so that you know, you're not leaving with a decision tonight.
Right. Yeah, I think the plan along is to take it under advisement and kind of have staff do some more work and things like that. So with that, I'll just invite public comment or questions. And yeah, if you just guys want to
Yeah.
hang around in case you got to come back to the microphone.
I wasn't planning, Joel Arbeitman, Woodridge Lane, I wasn't planning to comment on this medical marijuana discussion at all, but I wanted to know, I heard the address proposed being 40 Pond Street, and could you tell me exactly where that is? I don't know by
You
the
know
number.
the old dilapidated building, if you're heading
farm
east
stand.
on 126, if you're heading
Scanser.
into Framingham on 126?
Scanzaroli Brothers Farm Stand, used to be a flower stand.
Yeah.
Right across from Ale House, just before the Metro West Humane Society.
Okay, and given the reference to the Upper Charles Trail, what was the distance that was referenced?
750 feet.
750
Bylaw says
feet.
750 feet.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just to the applicants, for the public edification, let me put it that way, what is currently being envisioned is bringing the Upper Charles Trail that was mentioned in from the southwest corner of Market Basket, and then proceeding southbound on Route 126. So whether it's within 750
And
feet.
then, it's crossing over 126 into the.
Correct, but it
path
sounds
there.
like that would be quite a bit
I think
further
the-
south.
The attorney is correct. At the end of the day, it doesn't exist at this point.
Right.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Amy Turncliffe, 21 Rossi Lane. I'm a neuroscientist and prevention advocate, youth substance use prevention advocate. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Decisions in Every Turn Coalition. I'm speaking as a resident. As you can imagine, I have many, many questions. And so I'm not going to have time or go through all of them tonight. I'd like to offer to send them to you and let you get answers to the bulk of those. Thank you for not taking a vote tonight. I'm a little concerned about how this presentation was listed on the agenda because I think I'm not sure that it was clear to anyone reviewing the agenda that it was a medical marijuana dispensary giving a presentation just for businesses and residents to come and hear the presentation. So it might be useful for them to come back and have that opportunity again. I would like to ask just a couple of questions while you're here. One is around the medical, the lack, I guess, of medical professionals on site. So I do follow the literature around medical marijuana very closely, and there were a couple of studies that were just published about the utility of THC-based treatment for veterans for PTSD and also in chronic pain. And I do understand what you're saying, that there has been a complete lack of research on the topic. But one of in particular reference to PTSD, there was data that showed that in the short term, treatment with THC products was beneficial. But in the long term, it actually worsened their symptoms. So my question is, who's responsible if your patients have a negative reaction or they have some type of adverse event associated with that?
I think ultimately it's no different than if you go to a doctor for a prescription of anything that you're used to getting in your local pharmacy. The doctor that prescribes it has.
Excuse me, you might want to
come up to the microphone.
Up to the
Can't hear on cable.
We can't hear you on cable television, so.
Sorry. I think it's like any other drug that you're prescribed. There's a doctor that's responsible for recommending. It's technically not called a prescription. It's called a recommendation because, again, that's a federal term, a prescription. But that doctor is the one that ultimately takes the responsibility here.
Can I just piggyback
Sure.
a question with respect to that while you're there? So you have the marijuana grown. There are I don't know about the guidelines of the American Medical Association has provided guidelines as to how you grow it, what's in it, what's available in it, and like everything else, truth in packaging, truth in lending, there should be a label on it as to what percentage the THC is,
There
the
is.
ABU is in that.
All
Okay.
under the Massachusetts regulations. You have to,
Okay.
and it's all independently lab tested as well. That's part of the requirements too.
All products.
Yes.
All products are lab tested by an independent third party. You cannot have a lab testing license if you have a license for medical marijuana, so the two cannot have any sort of relationship. And those lab results are sort of similarly printed on every package like a nutritional facts is on food. Furthermore, state of Massachusetts requires that we grow all products using organic-based growing methods. We're not allowed to use pesticides. We're not allowed to use chemicals to minimize that. And lastly, I'd like to add that Massachusetts has the strictest testing regulations in terms of, parts per million. It's the largest discrepancy in order to get a product passed to go to sale.
And then, is there a quality control component in this with respect to the product being grown, produced, and you have a batch? Is a portion of that batch goes to a location where it's tested to make sure that it is exactly what it says it is?
Yes. So,
okay, and will there be reports or documentation provided that to, not only to the patient, but also to the community as a whole, or to the town per se?
So the Department of Public Health will have all this, as Phil mentioned, through our seed to sale tracking system.
Okay.
Every plant is tracked to the point where when you buy a product, it will tell you what row that plant was growing in, within which room within the facility it was growing in. When it's not just nutritional facts about the plant, it's the history and the lifeline of that plant as well that you'll be able to see. So, the Department of Public Health can come into our facility anytime, sort of like, the Board of Health can come into a restaurant. They will have access at any point in time to our facility.
Thank you.
Amy, before you get started, could you, when you send in your questions, submit your questions, could you also provide maybe some sources of reporting? And to be fair, I mean, just as balanced, unbiased as possible, because just looking at some of the information regarding the impacts of medical marijuana and opioid use. I mean, there's so much information out there.
And I too would like to see those sources.
Yeah.
There's a lot, look, at the end of the day, there are a lot of lobbying groups fighting for marijuana. And we just recently ran into a similar situation where the DEA had to release a letter apologizing because they had requested something be written and it was false evidence. And I'd be happy to share that.
I do try and cite everything and use credible scientific literature.
But just
I'm all about credible scientific literature.
But some reporting or some studies that are layperson can dig into.
You mean you want layperson studies?
Well, I just you're
I'm not good at that.
No, okay.
We want the information to be readable in layperson language, not studies done by layperson, but accurate.
What I might do is actually try to give you my card and maybe send over to you. We have a wealth of information on this topic, and you're free to go through it.
Thank you. I also have a wealth of information in my.
Okay. So Amy, what else did you have other questions?
So getting to the point of, I think it was Joe who asked about the medical society. Do they have kind of an outline of how you process the material? It's my understanding that there are no medical associations for the illnesses listed in the medical law that recognize medical marijuana as an effective treatment. So I just want to be clear about what it is, and it kind of sounded like clinical trials that were being done on people out in society. So I just want to be clear about what it is and.
Well, if I could just follow up, Amy. So I think you were suggesting that you're doing your own kind of evaluation, which I think seems reasonable. But are you? Right. Sure, but the only thing, so I was a little surprised, and this isn't no reflection on you, but there's no kind of established medical evaluation model set up in the state for all this treatment, and what are doctors using in terms of their recommendation
Remember, a lot of that
protocols?
is managed by the FDA, and marijuana is
That's
not
right.
noticed, is
That's
not
right.
recognized by the FDA. So all the testing that usually gets done on medications that are tested to make sure how they work is not being done on marijuana, which is one of the issues
That's
that
right.
people have, even though it's considered medical marijuana.
And I don't want you to, I'm sorry. I don't want you to get the impression that what we're doing is bringing people in and saying, "Yeah, try this. Let's just see
No,
what
you have
happens."
to go by
No,
by the
no,
recommendations. of the
But
doctor.
also, what you should understand, although there isn't a lot of information in the United States because of the federal prohibition, there is information from other countries around the world that are doing this. We use that. And there's also a lot of information from Colorado and Washington that have been doing this for several years. So when people come in and they sit down with one of the people that work for us, our people know, and they're able to say to them, "Oh, this is what you have. We have a wealth of information that this works." I understand we're not at the point where we have associations here that are backing that up because they don't have the funding to do any of the research yet. But we're doing what we can. The good news about this is that there's never been an overdose death from marijuana. And so I think that should give some comfort level. I understand it's not everything, but that is something to
But just
be
a
taken into
follow-up,
account.
so I thought you were more or less following either the recommendations or the directives of physicians who had issued this. So there's kind of more to it than that?
You're following a physician who believes that medical marijuana will assist this patient. They don't tell these patients, you need this much THC, you need this much marijuana.
So there's a gap there that.
There's a gap, but it's being filled in, and it's been filled in by, in the case of California, Colorado, Washington, several years now of experience dealing with this
So I
issue.
guess, so that's a little surprising, and given that there's no medical credentialed staff on site, is that right? And do other dispensaries do that, or what's the
There is
the
no
best
requirement
practice?
of that in Massachusetts. It hasn't been I mean, listen, what I can tell you is that it's working in places, and for whatever reason, that is not required by any of the regulations. I think Connecticut might be the only state that does require that. The rest of them don't.
Our dispensary.
You may want to get on the microphone.
Our dispensary consultants, those that work at the dispensary specifically, will be going through an initial 25-hour training course so they understand the products and the values of these products. They will also be going through constant education programs to keep up as we sort of learn more from our patients and what their needs are and what their demands are. I can't say here, like, today, the products we launch on day one will be the same 2 years later. They will evolve. We will learn from them. This is a stepping stone. I think a lot of this discussion it's an indicator of we need to move forward and learn about this. But to keep it in the dark and just shun it out of society is not the appropriate way to keep moving forward. There are large problems that this state is facing. There are large problems this country is facing, and marijuana is not it.
Okay, thank you. Amy, did you have any?
I do. I'll try to
hopefully
be.
wrap
I'll
up
try.
here.
I will. I'll try to. I know we could go back and forth.
Actually, yeah,
Well, that's not a
Yes.
bad
why
idea.
don't both of you come sit here, sir?
That's not a bad idea.
That way, if you have
He
answer
said, she
questions,
said.
that makes it easier. And just, you want to have the microphones.
So just to be clear, you don't currently have an operating dispensary. Is that true?
That is correct.
Not in Massachusetts and not anywhere else.
Not in Massachusetts, correct.
Do you have them in another state?
We are slightly involved in a medical operation in Oregon where our director of cultivation currently operates.
Okay. And is it your expectation?
But it's a cultivation only.
Okay. Is it your expectation that you will sell high potency concentrates at your dispensary?
So that is not the market I'm interested in.
I'm just curious.
No,
Yeah,
no,
it's
no.
okay.
No, that is not the market I'm interested in, but there are extreme cases for patients that do need that. I can specifically think of, out in Oregon, we have a couple employees who are Afghanistan veterans who that's what they prefer because that's what they want and they say they need that. I do not believe the market is only about THC potency. We need to learn a lot more about all the different cannabinoids and their interactions with the terpenes profiles of each strain. We know very little, and that is a problem.
I was happy to hear you mention CBD, which is non-psychoactive, and there is evidence that that may have some medical benefit. And my last question is about edibles. And we have, in Ashland, have been very proactive in terms of tobacco, in banning flavored products and products that might be appealing to children, such as single sale of single cigars and things like that. So we're very out in front on youth substance use prevention. I am not necessarily worried that youth are going to come into your shop and try to purchase from you. I'm worried about products being diverted. So, for example, I know that a lot of the edibles would be appealing to children. They're, you know, I don't know what kind of edibles you might be interested in.
The regulations in Massachusetts do not allow us to create any packaging or products that.
I know, I understand. Yeah, but there's still edibles nonetheless.
Of course, I mean, there are also parents.
Candies, and I understand. I'm just saying there is the potential there.
It's a legitimate concern. We understand that, you know, it's
I wish I had the answer.
The difficulty is that there are patients that want to take their medicine through edibles. As I understand it, it gets into the system in a way that's better. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to get into it. I just understand that that's a preferable way. But we're not unknowledgeable about the problem.
Yeah, part of my concern comes from in Colorado. Some of the kids are saying they're accessing their marijuana through individuals who have medical cards. And so we know that medical cards are issued not only to patients who might benefit, but they're unfortunately also issued to people who are looking to use recreationally. So those are just some of my concerns.
So, Amy, I'm glad you brought up that last point. And another thing that I'm very passionate about is there is a really strong black market. Cannabis is in your community.
Oh, of course.
We
know.
We know.
But to allow it to continue to thrive in the black market is not the answer of solving the problem. It is not it will not.
All right, thank you. That's one of the things we'll be talking
I just
about.
want to say that kids are still going to be accessing it through the black market. It'll just maybe be coming through diverted.
Yeah,
That's all.
let's try not to get too wide range. Yes, ma'am. You want to identify yourself?
Yes, I'm Lisa Ulbrich, 183 America Boulevard. I am a sector member at Decisions at Every Turn. I'm a certified interventionist. I'm an executive professional recovery coach, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And a question that I have for you. I also am starting a business on an innovative approach to address substance use disorder, not geared towards use of medical marijuana. My question to you is, we're a community that responds to the needs of our communities, and what type of profile and what type of research have you done on the residents and the need that Ashland requires this?
So the first thing we looked at is the voting demographic. 63% of residents in the town of Ashland did vote in favor of medical marijuana. But another thing is, at the end of the day, Massachusetts is a very small state. It's not just the community of Ashland that we're looking to help. They are neighboring communities that we're looking at, and also access.
That's true.
Ashland happens to be very well located. That allows a very large population within a 30-minute drive to access this location. And currently in the state of Massachusetts, there is no dispensary located in central Massachusetts.
All right, thank you. Paul, did you?
Paul Kendall, 25 Olive Street. I'm a member of the school committee. I'm also a school committee liaison to Decisions at Every Turn, but I'm talking as an individual here. The need, I don't see the need. I reviewed the regulations when they first came out. Everything was first passed, and it was very clear you couldn't simply ban the dispensaries for medical marijuana, unless there wasn't the need for it. So Milford has two marijuana businesses. I believe one is already there. So how
is this medical marijuana in Milford?
There's nothing in Milford.
It's a cultivation facility.
Oh, okay.
It's not a dispensary.
Southborough, I believe, has.
Not open.
They're in the process, right? They're in the process. And
Right.
Framingham, I think, is in some.
But
Yeah,
let me try and...
So there's multiple neighboring communities that are in the process. So I believe Milford already has the cultivation, and I believe there's another one that's going for dispensary. So they are neighboring towns. So they're already in process. You're attempting to start this process. So where is that need? And Ashland voting for medical marijuana could be a compassionate vote, not a need, right? So how is Ashland, this area still needed?
Okay. So the issue is, it's when you open a medical marijuana dispensary, it's not like when you open a CVS, where this CVS sells the same thing that Walgreens sells, that Rite Aid sells. And the reason for that is it's required in Massachusetts that you be what's called vertically integrated. You have to grow, process, and sell your own material. So what that means from a practical standpoint is you can't wholesale and go out and buy any of 1,000 different combinations of this. You can only produce efficiently maybe 5 to 10 different types of products. So just because you have a dispensary perhaps in Southborough doesn't mean that patients here are going to be able to find what they need there. There's a healthy competition that goes on here to produce the wide range of products that everybody needs. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, like marijuana, oh, it'll take care of this problem, this problem, this problem. No, a specific ailment needs specific types of medicine, and most single dispensaries can't produce every type of medicine for all of the different ailments. So they're going to specialize to certain markets, and that's sort of a trial and error thing like any business. You find out what your patients are looking for. But that's sort of why there is a need here. The fact that there may be others.
Just kind of follow up on Paul. Does DPH have any kind of requirements about spacing between dispensaries, or like could we have 2 or 3 others that come in here? Or?
Again, Colorado, when they were at the height of their medical-only market, had about 400 dispensaries for the entire state. And that was with a population of 1 million less than what you have in Massachusetts. We have 12 right now. There's not enough to produce either the amount that's needed or
so there's no geographical controls. Other people could apply here as well.
Some local municipalities have provisions in their local regulations. Some say no 2 registered medical marijuana dispensaries could be within a mile of each other.
We don't have anything.
We don't have that.
Okay. No, but you have some control.
The
idea of the letter of support or non-opposition is not really, the town of Wakefield tried to prohibit it, and the Attorney General said you can't do that. But what you can do is sort of say, are we comfortable with this operator, and do we have enough now? You can do that. And that's what the idea of the letter of support or non-opposition.
Paul, did you have something else?
And to clear, I believe unless they've changed it, you didn't need to allow a second in either. So you couldn't ban, but if there was already one, you could just flat deny in perpetuity a second, unless that regulation's changed.
No, I think that's accurate.
So they did have that provision in there. So no, there wasn't there was a limit. I don't know if they've changed the limit to the number that the Department of Health would allow in the state. I don't know. I think it was 17 at the time.
Yeah, the way the law read, it said that they would only allow up to 35 in the first year of operation, but that's because it's not the first year.
Right, Paul, did you have other questions or concerns you wanted to?
Yeah, and I think it came up, but just the analogy to what he said about any prescription that a doctor would, that's, as has come out, that's completely inaccurate. And when you get prescribed something you pick up at CVS, that doctor's prescribed you the dosage of the exact drug in the format that whether it be a liquid, whether it be a capsule, whatever that is, where this is, I think you're okay going to somebody else who's not a trained professional in the medical field. They might have, been trained in any number of other ways, but, and you're, left to your own devices. And so I appreciate, first of all, that what you said about your not wanting to use the provisions of trying to, go medical and then, go to recreational. That's, I applaud you for that. And the data collection part, that's a prudent thing to do. But I don't see the need, and, it's, there is a lot more questions than there are answers to this. And so, again, we have our other local towns that are already going through this process, and so, why here, why now? So,
Okay. All right, thanks, Paul. Anybody besides Joel want to ask any questions? Why don't you come up here, John? We hear enough from Joel. I mean, we're looking forward to hearing more from him.
For me in 10 years. John DeSoni, 18 Land's End Way. I'm afraid I'm going to be a real problem for you. I'm going to adamantly oppose this all the way down the line. I own 34 Pond Street, which is right next door, and I have a family, husband and wife, with elementary school-age children living there, and I can't go along with this at all. This is going to interfere with my right to do business. I've owned that property for 20 years. You can say it's going to be secretive and it's going to be, under the radar and all that, but people are going to know. And eventually, if these people just decide because their kids are growing up, they don't want them there right next to it. I mean, and then when I go to bring in the next people to live there, what kind of family with children is going to want to go there? Secondly, I mean, we were listening to you talk for about, in 15 minutes, you got up later and said, and the door to recreational was wide open. And we're talking, you said in the beginning that you have no intention. Am I mistaken? Was that what I thought? It was no intention. And then you got up and spoke and said that it's too early and this is years down the road. But the fact of the matter is the state says that is going to say that recreation, once it's approved, and if you do lift the moratorium, that these are going to be the people that first get to sell it.
Well, can I just say, I don't want to have too much dialogue between you. I don't want to get into debate, but I think one of the things we'll look into before we take any action is the kind of legal position vis-a-vis recreational use, and if there's any special privileges due to this siting, right? So we'll get the background on that.
That's why we wanted to sign an agreement with you that we wouldn't do it without receiving.
So schools, daycare centers. What about residential houses? Now the zoning, he said, was highway commercial, and that's not actually accurate. It's shared zoning. There's residential commercial highway. So I mean, there are houses all along that corridor, and I happen to be your next door neighbor.
What's your zoning, John?
I believe it was changed at some point. So I think it's highway commercial residential.
Yeah,
I'd have to have that checked on.
So Preston, I think, is trying to are you looking it up, Preston? No?
So
no, he's doing something else. Never mind.
Excuse me, John, so what's your address and what?
34 Pond Street, I own the property. It's a house.
But it's a rental property?
Right.
For you, so you rent it to people, okay.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead, John. Is there something else?
No, there's all kinds of points, but I mean, the main crux of what I'm saying is I have a house, I have a family that lives there, and I don't want a marijuana facility next door. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I'm not saying, all the data. I'm not going one way or the other. I know the citizens voted, and that's it. But this is a whole different thing. I have a family living next door. So I don't think that...
And so your position is that just them being located, regardless of the security and...
Absolutely.
That it's not going to work for that family, and you, as a
no
landlord,
guarantee.
will have trouble renting it to...
Well, I'm just saying that, whatever happens, they get out, it's all secure, they get out, they park the car, they get in the car, and they light it up. Can you really stop that?
Oh, I see.
I mean, no, you can't. I know there's cameras and there's all that,
So John's, can you address that particular?
Sure.
So he's talking about your patients
Sure.
coming there, getting it,
So-
and maybe hanging around in the parking lot or doing something.
For someone to become a patient, it is not a walk in, fill out an application, and you get a card. It takes time, takes money. Anyone who consumes on premise, their ID and their name would be submitted to the Department of Health.
Well, so do you have controls for the parking lot? So that John's talking about
yes,
adjacent
of
or
course.
nearby.
As I said, we have cameras outside, and we will police the parking lot. We're not going to allow people to use on site. That's a big no-no under the DPH
And that's something we
regulations.
discussed with the police chief, is having someone there to, full-time security staff, monitoring the parking lot during the times of operation to avoid that.
I will also add that you don't have to have your PCP. Your primary care does not have to be the one that issues this script. Any doctor can give it to you.
Any doctor that has established a relationship with you, and there's some requirements. It can't be just walk in, you're all set. I mean, there is a degree to which you're always dependent upon a doctor and the doctor's good judgment for whether it's a prescription for this or anything else that's taken.
But as you said, it's a doctor that just, he's buying into this whole thing, and he believes that there's benefits.
There's a lot of doctors that believe that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that there aren't.
Right.
But I'm just saying you don't have to, it's not as strict as you say where you go, your doctor, you go and you talk to him, and then he gives you, if you don't get it there,
He's going to
you
look
can get
at
it
your
from anywhere.
history, and he's going to make a decision about whether this is something that you
Any
actually
doctor.
can benefit
I
you or
just
not.
want to, there's a lot of discussion and concerns that are my concerns as well, but they're not all in my control. Things that are in my control, we are doing our best to figure them out and to implement them and to provide the feedback necessary to the Department of Health to continue to make this better. This is on a national level, this is a 5-year industry. There's no other industry so youthful. So all of these concerns, the doctors or the child eating an edible, of course I have all these concerns. And I condemn any doctor who writes a prescription for medical marijuana just because they get to make some money, as much as I condemn a doctor who writes a prescription for an opioid. We need to work together as a society to build this up and to solve it together. And and to say, those are your concerns. I'm going to address everything in my power to make this done correctly, and I'm going to work with all regulatory enforcement, law enforcement, health departments to make sure that in the long term, in the future, 10 years out, that we've established an industry without the need of federal government to self-regulate and to address the problems that society is facing.
All right, thank you. And
John,
John,
I will just add then,
Sure.
so going the other way. Boston, Worcester, Boston just added to their whole thing that they're debating this whole thing now. It cannot be next to residential areas. Cannot be next to residential. Worcester
medical
is,
dispensaries
Yes.
should not be next to.
Yeah. Worcester just added that there has to be a 300-foot buffer for any residential area.
I'm not sure about that, what you're citing as Boston, because I know that there's some existing that are within that.
Okay,
but I don't want to,
All right, so,
I guess what I'd suggest.
Let's let John finish up.
Yeah, we can certainly check that. If I'm wrong,
Yes.
I'm happy to back off that. But yeah, I don't want it. I don't want it next to the family.
Residential facility.
It's a house. It's a family. It's a residential house.
And what are we talking about in terms of distance? I'm just trying to visualize the lot and the house. I don't really remember the
25,
house.
30 feet.
To the edge of the parking lot or the
Google
proposed
Maps,
parking
Jen?
lot, Do you guys have any buffer plans or anything like that, or?
We can certainly,
in our-
do that.
In our architecture design, we do have, shrubs and bushes that we would use to
there's
delineate the
overlay
property
mixed.
along with
It's
fence.
a tough district.
And again, on-site security.
Yeah, I appreciate it and everything. I'm not interested in any bushes or shrubs or any of that. I don't want a medical marijuana facility next door to the house that I have a family with elementary school kids living there. They're a nice family. They don't smoke. They don't drink. Ashland Police Department is very familiar. Is Ray. He does the towing sometimes for Ashland and for Framingham Police. So he's been there for a few years and shows every indication of wanting to stay. Loves the schools, so I'd like to keep him.
All right.
I don't want anything to interfere with that. So I'll be at the planning boards, I'll be at the zoning, I'll see you all the way down the line.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
And that is a question about the planning and the other permitting. Is there anybody want to talk about that, or
I wouldn't even,
besides? Okay.
Rob,
Joel, anybody
Rob?
else? Yes.
planning is not our purview. I don't know that I would go
No,
down
I'm
that route
just,
tonight.
in terms of this whole process, what that would.
they'll have
So
to
Joel,
go
did you have
through
anything
this
else you wanted
process.
to ask?
I want to highlight a few things that I heard tonight. One is 63% of residents, whether I support it or not is really irrelevant, but 63% of the residents voted in favor of this. I hope the board weighs that very heavily. That's a substantial, that's not a marginal vote, that's pretty substantial. That's number one. Secondly, there was discussion earlier about, even surprise expressed by one or two board members about the fact that the doctors are not prescribing with specificity.
Yeah, I was one of those
that's kinda-
people, yeah, I
Fair
admit,
enough,
yeah.
if I use the right jargon here. And somebody's glasses are here, by the way.
Maybe they're John's.
I want to, and this is really to Mr. Kendall's statement that, you know, doctors prescribe very precisely as to whether it's liquid or solid. I don't have all the jargon you use, but, you know, exactly what the milligrams are in the dosages and so on. And I wanted to address that because I have had extensive experience with prescription medication, taking care of elderly parents. They had hundreds of prescriptions, and I'm sure many people here in the room will recognize what I'm about to say about this. It is unbelievably common that doctors say, let's try you on this one, see how you tolerate it. And you are then changed either to a different dosage, up, down, based on the feedback provided by the patient to the doctor. If you don't call the doctor, they assume everything's okay. Maybe they should follow up with you, maybe there are subsequent appointments and so on. But it is very often patient-centered medication. In other words, the doctor says, you go in with a complaint, I have this problem. The doctor uses expertise to make a very specific, as was stated, a very specific, let's try this. Oftentimes they start you on a low dosage and increase it. Sometimes you don't tolerate a given configuration and it is adjusted and you're given a completely different drug. So, you know, to single out marijuana and say, you know, these nutty guys are off here mixing their potions and doctors have nothing to do with it. I think this is the world of prescription medication, and whether this is considered prescription or some other federal term that's used for it, I think that's very common. Next point, relative to zoning, I would beg the board, and I would beg everyone in town who's going to make an argument that is zoning related to, and this data may exist, but I would just ask this question. Is there evidence that proximity equals increased usage or risk to vulnerable populations? So you talk about children gaining access to whether it's medical or tobacco or alcohol or anything else. And I know in this town, I was surprised. I don't know, there's a commercial establishment, I'll leave it vague like that, right next to the middle school. And I was actually meaning to check into whether they sell tobacco products there. This is, I don't know, 100 feet from the school grounds.
They do.
Okay, I'm asking, I don't know.
They do.
They do sell it? Okay,
Yep.
so I would ask the question, has there been a higher degree of abuse given proximity, not just for that business or that product, tobacco? Is there really an association between proximity? The gentleman spoke passionately about being a residence right next door to a proposed business. Is there evidence to say, here are the risks? Or is this just an understandable fear, but it's not documented? It's not evidence-based fear, it's just fear.
That's not my point.
Okay, well, you can come up and respond in a minute. The last point I want to make is, relative to the issues that I heard here talking about all of the qualifications of the staff at this proposed facility, the austerity, the austereness, I'm not sure what the word is, of the state regulations sound like they're pretty profound here. And the alternative, and the word was used before, is the black market. I mean, maybe by legitimizing a business, maybe use will increase. Maybe there's evidence like that we could see. But the reality is that I would rather have this guy and his camera and his security guy peeking out in the parking lot than having a black market with nobody peeking.
So
Where
is
is that stuff happening? What house is it being done in? How close to schools? Are kids getting access to those drug dealers? I mean, these guys sound like at least they have some degree of, number one, responsibility to state government and local police enforcement, and their own qualifications, and more than that, they're putting their capital on the line here. They're about to try to run a business, and they know that if they are not effective in regulating this the way this board would want them to do, they're out of here. you know.
So is this a fair to say statement of support for their?
Well, I'm looking to learn more, I think, but those are the factors that I'm weighing right now, that, you know, the black market has no controls. This is clearly better than that, you know, so I just don't see what the alternative is. And I would just reiterate that 63% is 63%.
Well, you asked. So, all right, thanks, Joel. So we do want to move along, so I'm going to ask people, so besides Paul, anybody else want to, okay, so let's keep it as short as possible, please.
Yeah, so when I sat down before, the black market was something I was going to mention. So just, it's not the black market or this, Brookline, right? So these 60-day supplies, you have to drive 35 minutes every 60 days. So
They don't have enough product for patients. I know you mentioned that you don't see the need, but you're not one of the 40,000 patients. I don't know. Because,
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Let's let him finish, and then really do need to keep
you also
moving.
made the point about doctors and the other prescriptions and modifying. The difference is the doctors are the ones doing it, and they're bounded by good, well-founded. You know, they can't just say, "I'm going to give you 1,000 milligrams of this because I want to."
Well, Paul, I mean, one of the things, we do have medical marijuana dispensaries in the state. And and the question, I think, would be whether we should have it here or not, or
what I was saying is Joel said that when the discussion around that the doctor says, here, go there, and then the blends, the mechanisms for consumption, everything like that are determined by someone other than a medical professional, right? And then not necessarily going back for that through the medical profession. And also the difference is when a doctor comes to say, oh, that didn't work as well, we can try this. Those are bounded by good scientific, FDA-governed procedures, right? They can't just willy-nilly give you something that goes beyond what the FDA's.
How would you explain the opioid epidemic happening across the country?
Let's not get into a debate.
Yeah.
I understand your point of view, but okay, Paul, is there anything else that you want to share with us? Yeah, we just kind of. Is there anything else?
Okay. No, I'm good.
He makes a very good point, and we don't want to discount it. What I would suggest to you is this has to start somewhere, and we don't have enough medical professionals even that have a good enough understanding. And so this is how it's beginning. If you're going to say, unless you have a doctor that says you have to take 15% THC and 85%, you won't start.
Right.
We just don't have
I think
it,
we
so.
understand.
Real quick, less than 30 seconds. Excuse me. The vote that you keep referring to and everything on the marijuana, that was not a vote about putting a dispensary in Ashland. That was a vote in Massachusetts for the support of it. They are two different things. They are not related. Number two, I'm not worried about the kids and the tenants going over and getting gummy bears and getting high. I'm worried about the stigma that's attached that they're not going to want to be there because of what's there. And then friends that come over to visit them will not want to be there because of what's there. And the third thing I would just ask that you just include, not next to a residential dwelling. Can't be there. That's it.
All right, thank you.
That would be a planning board.
So what's the sense of, does the board have further questions or discussion you want to engage in? So, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you for your information. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to take this under advisement. We're going to do
Get the
some
questions
little.
from Amy.
Yeah,
We'll do
we'll
some
get
reviewing and
review
we'll let you know.
We'll
all
also
that.
provide documents that we've, that
Sure.
you're not the first board to want to
Sure.
see more
Right.
data.
Of course, I can imagine.
Yeah, we'll provide some further.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
then
you
I
all.
think we've indicated to the staff some of the areas that we'd like more information on. And
So just real quick, one last thing. What are the communities that you already have what do you call them? Non-opposition letters from?
Of course, this isn't controversial.
Yep.
Lakeville
Yep.
and Westminster.
Okay.
This one.
Now, certain towns.
And you said Auburn was just for growing,
Correct.
and Lakeville was for growing and dispensing, and Westminster is for
But we're moving away from the Auburn cultivation because of the Lakeville cultivation.
Right.
We found to be a better fit. It is a larger facility.
Okay.
We're owning it instead of leasing it, and that was an important factor for us.
Okay.
Can't imagine.
And then there was other communities that you were in the process of speaking with.
You might want to get to the microphone.
Yeah.
We are speaking with the town of Tewksbury.
Mm-hmm.
And we are also, Auburn has asked us to come back
Okay.
for a dispensary location.
Dispensary, okay. Okay.
And that was them coming to us.
Okay.
Coming to you to ask, okay,
Yes,
good.
because
good to know.
they appreciated our presentation
All right.
the first time.
Okay.
And you
Thank
said,
you.
folks, one of you, I think it might have been Attorney Silverman, that you had a conversation with the chief of police in town?
Yeah.
And did you show him this presentation? Talk to him about the
Yeah,
presentation?
we shared all the documentation that we've shared with you, in addition to a more detailed security plan. That plan will continue to evolve. The chief and I agreed that there was no need to continue a detailed discussion about security until we met with the board.
That does remind me that we probably should have something in writing from the chief.
From the chief,
about this
that's
whole
it,
thing.
exactly,
Yeah.
that's where I was going with that, because
Great.
I'm looking at the design that you sent in,
We met
and
with him
I'm
and the
saying to
lieutenant.
myself.
Yeah, and you said that in your, yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
My
that.
comment was, I'm looking at this design,
And maybe it's-
architectural design, and the fence doesn't even go around the building. I'm surprised the chief didn't comment.
Okay, so we'll
That's all.
follow. That
Thank
sounds like
you.
good.
Again.
Thank you. So this, of course, is a complicated question, and now we've got the next item in our agenda is
Sleep all
the
night now.
board discussion on marijuana dispensaries, and this is recreational marijuana, correct? Right, so,
I'd like to say,
did you
I
have?
sort
a-
of feel I think we've discussed marijuana enough right now, personally.
Well, okay. My understanding, yeah. Anything else?
That's it. I'd sort of like
Yeah.
to,
Well, so Steve, I think Steve would give us some background on the
Well,
process.
I just would ask that, well, first of all, I think we should be voting or making an action as a complete board, number
Well,
one.
Right,
thank you.
exactly.
I agree.
But number two, I think we should direct the staff to look at the process by which we pursue a referendum opportunity for residents to decide. That's built into the law. I believe there's some potential differences between different entities as far as the process goes, whether it's the AG's office or the Mass Municipal Association. So if we can get some clarity on that, as to how do we proceed, and then, my gut sense is that we're all supportive of moving at least in the direction that the law provides, which is a referendum. So I think if we can get some clarity on process, then we can then fine tune it and move forward.
okay. My understanding was that process had started, but I guess not.
So there's some uncertainty so the governor signed a new law in July.
Right.
There's sort of these opposing potential local options on process. It's really just a process question, whether you do a ballot question prior to a town meeting vote, or if you need a town meeting vote at all.
Oh, okay.
And so it's really just clarification about process, which I'm happy to work with town
Yeah,
council
definitely.
on.
So just to kind of try to clarify a little bit, we're now looking at a process where we have special town meeting coming up and municipal election in May, and then the spring town meeting, and then current moratorium on recreational marijuana ends July 1st. So we're kind of looking at that calendar and what we're going to do in terms of townwide votes, town meeting action, and whether it's for zoning or putting it up for a vote, or that. So that's what this discussion is all about, and the best way how to sequence that so that it makes sense. So is it the sense of the board that basically we're just going to continue reviewing that process and come up, probably at our next meeting, we'll have further information or undertake something?
I would think we would have to if we're looking to do something for fall
Yeah,
special.
which is a possibility, right?
Mhm.
So,
Right.
and okay. Any further kind of discussion that people want to engage in at this time? It's not late enough or yet, or? Okay. All right, so if there's anything, I guess we'll move on to the next one then, so, okay.
Thank you. Consent agenda?
Yeah, so now it's the consent agenda. Now, if I have the, sure.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Yep. All right, so I guess while we're
Thank you.
Thank you.
So while Jen's putting it up, I guess it's not very long, so I'm just going to read it if that's all right. And if there's anybody who wants to pull any of the particular items, just let me know.
No.
So the consent agenda: accept donation from DPH in the amount of $5,000 for emergency preparedness. B, accept a donation to the Ashland Food Pantry, including toys, food, clothing, and school supplies from numerous individuals and organizations. C, block party request to close Warren Road Saturday, September 23rd from 2 to 5. D, change of hours for the one-day license that was approved for Wine Empire on October 1st, 2017 from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and the modification is to change the hours 1 to 5 p.m. Accept the resignation of Arthur Kaya from the Council on Aging. And F, accept the minutes of July 19th, 2017.
Motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed, and one absent. Okay, so something happened there.
That's
We have
okay.
some technical
You read it.
difficulties.
Yeah, you read it anyway, so.
But it is on the agenda. Actually, what I've read is so anybody can see it on the
The backup
website.
will
Yeah.
be
The backup
available.
will be
so
there,
it's
yeah.
not-
Yeah. Do we do make the backup available on a certain schedule?
It's part of the minutes.
Part of the minutes.
Oh, it's a minute when we replace.
So once we approve the minutes.
All right, so, old new business. Okay, so I have memorandum of understanding Apple Ridge easement, sidewalk, and multimodal path. Jen, are you going to present these?
I certainly can. So this is just an agreement between Apple Ridge Realty Trust and the town of Ashland. So on the MBTA access road, we needed a utility easement at the end of that, sort of middle to end of that road, so that we can complete the sidewalks and the multimodal path as outlined in our design. So this agreement gives us that easement and then also holds the Apple Ridge Realty Trust harmless in terms of if they ever want to develop the parcel of land abutting the road, that they wouldn't have to widen the road or make any changes to the intersection on West Union because of the design that we have put forth. It's to comply more in line with complete streets, so that's narrowing the road a little bit, and this just holds that, it holds him harmless if they ever do develop that piece.
So that's really the end of the MBTA access road near Dunkin' Donuts, is that right?
A little, yeah, a little bit higher than Dunkin' Donuts,
And,
then down to the end of the road. And then this agreement will, once we approve that, assuming you will, it will go to the planning board for their approval as well.
And this is just an easement, if I believe I've read, there's no money involved, there's
no money, yeah,
nothing,
it's
it's just an agreement to allow us to basically improve the property for people to use and for us to complete the work we had planned.
That's correct, just to complete the sidewalk and to be able to complete the bike trail, the multimodal path that goes down the road.
Okay.
Now, is that where the telephone pole is going, or is it across the street? It's across the street from it, okay.
All right, any discussions or any further discussions?
No.
Do I have
Sounds good.
a motion for this?
Sure, I move that we accept the Apple Ridge Memorandum of Understanding for the sidewalk and multimodal path as presented.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. One absent. Okay. The next one is the facility easement agreement as presented. And this is the Rail Transit District easement.
That's correct. So this is a utility easement. This is a traditional utility easement that would allow us access to water and sewer utilities if necessary. And this complies with the planning board's site plan review.
But this is the Rail Transit District easement for the bike path, or am I
So
on the
there's
wrong
two
one?
separate. There's two
Okay.
separate easements. One's a facilities easement, and then the second one is the trail easement.
Oh, so we've kind of combined them.
No, the
Well,
two
they're
separate.
separate.
No, there's two separate ones,
C and D.
Oh, okay.
B and C.
Well, the certification,
B
D
and
is the
C. B and
certification.
C.
Oh, okay.
B,
Oh,
C
we're on
and
C
D.
though.
C and D.
Should be B. Yeah.
Right, B we just approved,
Right,
correct? Which
and
is
we're
the
on
Apple
C,
Ridge.
right.
C is
No.
the easement for the utilities, and then
Not
D
according
is
to my agenda, but
is the easement for the trail, at least what I'm looking at here.
Geez, I've got D is,
I had Apple Ridge was A
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I have too.
as the memorandum of
And then
understanding.
D and E.
oh, right, you are,
respectively.
And
yeah.
C and B and C. But anyway, okay.
Okay, got it. It is B and
So,
C, right.
again, so this is to give us access, again, there's no money
necessary,
involved,
no
if
one-
necessary, working with the
Campanelli and
Campanelli and Thorndike. Okay.
Okay, and so that's B, so the motion is for just B, facilities
Yes.
easement agreement, okay.
And this
it-
just because it's a utility easement just
Okay, sorry, I
requires,
get,
your
I was
approval.
on the wrong one, so.
Looking at the-
So should
Yeah.
we turn it,
Original
should we
agenda.
say facilities/utilities easement versus just facilities?
So this has been worked out with Lisa, so I think that in the
It's called a
actual,
facilities easement agreement,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I move that we accept and sign the facilities easement agreement as presented.
Second on that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, and one absent. Okay, so
And you
this one,
updated the signature page?
yes, I have that
Thank
updated,
you.
yep.
so now we are on the easement agreement for the rail transit district, and this is the easement really for the multimodal Upper Charles Trail path. And, you know, we had the map with the easement agreement. Now, I guess legally, it seemed okay to me, but I presume our legal counsel
Yeah,
looked at it.
town council has reviewed it.
Yeah.
It does comply with the planning board's agreement as part of their site plan review. This has to be approved by you, but then it will also, because it's a trail, will actually go to town meeting,
Oh, will, so.
Oh.
in-
I believe.
Now, the question I had when I looked at it was, wow, it is gonna be tough to locate the trail on that easement. But my understanding from the planning board, and Preston's here, I don't know if he wants to talk about it, he's well, is that this is the first step, and it's really dependent on getting an easement on the neighboring property as well, whatever happens there, and then we can combine the easements to hopefully come up with a feasible trail. And/or we can maybe renegotiate it if necessary, because right now, I don't know if you guys had a look at it, it's and the gradient there is difficult, so I don't know, Preston, you wanna?
Yeah, Preston Crowe, 41 Rockwood, Chair of the Planning Board. This was the best that we were able to get in negotiations with them at the time. We wanted to have something so at least there was a possibility of putting in a trail. And the assumption was always that when the adjacent parcel was developed, by then we'd have a better understanding of exactly where we wanted the trail, and hopefully we could negotiate for something better going through there. But we want to hang on to this easement until we know exactly where the trail is actually going to be built, so that we have at least some option through there. You know, and maybe with the gradients, the best we could do is a hiking trail. It may be too steep for a biking trail, but at least we have something, and then we can get better as we move forward, is the goal.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Preston. Any other questions or discussion on it?
No?
So can I get a motion on this?
Sure, I move that we we accept and sign the easement agreement as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. One absent, and that passes, okay. And then I think we still need to do the certification of the National Bank merger.
Yeah, so those are related to the last two easements. It's basically an easement agreement with the lenders, the banking lenders for Campanelli and Thorndike, that basically they have agreed to make their mortgages subordinate to our easement agreements, and therefore, if there was ever a foreclosure on that property, our easements would still stand.
Okay.
That makes sense. Now I
I
understand.
was reading these and
Yeah,
didn't
I
to
could
ask questions, so.
understand Thank you.
Okay.
That answers my
So,
question.
I move that we approve the agreement regarding the certification of the National Bank merger as presented.
Second.
All those, I hear a motion and a second. All those in favor, say
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed and one absent. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that gets us to the hazard mitigation plan.
So this is more of a procedural agenda item. In, I believe, on December 16th, MAPC came and did a presentation on the update to our hazard mitigation plan, which outlined basically goals that we have set for ourselves as a town to help decrease our vulnerabilities to natural hazards such as flooding and other natural hazards that may impact the community. So they came in December 16th to us, and then on the 22nd, they presented to the planning board their proposed updates to our 2008 hazard mitigation plan. Those were posted on our website. We agreed for MAPC to push that forward to the approval process. So it has taken 6 months to make it through the MEMA and FEMA, so Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and the federal Emergency Management Agency process, their bureaucratic sort of review process. They have not made.
You used to work at one of those?
I did.
So you're very
I did.
bureaucratic.
Yes, I worked at MEMA. And it is a really, really long process for the review. So they didn't make any substantive changes. Our contract term with FEMA, so this plan is good for 5 years, and basically what it opens up, when you have an approved plan from FEMA, it opens up opportunities for pre-disaster hazard mitigation grants that we are otherwise not eligible for. Our 5-year contract term begins this month, and so we need to formally approve the plan, which we reviewed in December, so that we can put forth, and then FEMA will authorize the plan formally. So it's a little bit more of a procedural. It's on our website. It's been on our website since December.
Any discussion? I mean, I kind of remember the presentation, and of course, this hazard mitigation is extremely important as we're seeing, so, and I'm sure we have follow-up things we should be doing. So, discussion or question? In terms of the schedule, we really have to do it now, and this was relatively unforeseen, right? Which is why it's, yeah. All right, any further discussion? Ready for a motion?
I move that we accept the hazard mitigation plan as required and presented. Well, not presented, because it was not.
Previously. Second.
Previously presented.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. One absent. Okay, and we've done the appointments.
Well, we've done one. We did not do
we
the
could
one
not
for
do-
Donnell.
Right.
Donna.
Oh, it's
We
Donna.
couldn't do Margie. Well, we did,
Are
we
we
did
ex-
those
did
two,
Jean.
right?
No, we only did Jean.
Right.
Are we expecting Donna, or?
Oh, that's right, we held
basically
off
say
on
at this
Donna,
point she's
right.
probably
I
not
think
coming.
probably not coming.
So
If the
can
board
we-
is comfortable, I did attend the Council on Aging meeting where she was interviewed and then subsequently recommended, and she was very impressive. Her credentials are very extensive in elder services, and I was very impressed. I was very glad. Had no impact on the vote of the council, but I was glad to see that she was selected. She was, and I had a chance to talk to her afterwards as well. So in my view, she's eminently qualified, and I would suggest that we just appoint her this
Sure.
evening.
Okay.
Works for
I
me.
would suggest you make the appointment then.
Well, I'd be glad to. Apologize, Donna, because I know I am not going to pronounce
Yeah,
your
that's right.
last name correctly, but I move that we appoint Donna Velmuir
Sounds pretty
to
good, yeah.
the Council on Aging with a term, and I'm not quite sure, let me,
8/31/19.
excuse me?
8/31/19.
8/30 for a term that will expire on 8/31/19.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And one absent. Okay. So congratulations, it's Donna, right?
It's Donna,
Yeah.
and I guess their next step, Jean and Donna certainly need to go and get sworn in
Oh,
so
yeah.
they can participate at the next
Yep.
council meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that brings us to town manager reports. And the first one being the update on the committee handbook.
So probably a month or so ago, I reported that town clerk's office, Tara Ward and Cindy Livingstone were working on an update to our committee handbook, which I believe had not been updated since 2009.
looks like.
So Cindy has done a tremendous amount of research on what other communities are using for handbooks, and sort of looked through what we had and then added in some additional sections from other municipalities' handbooks. We tried to address some of the ongoing concerns and sort of clarify things that we tend to run up against in many of the appointed committees and boards in terms of not really understanding open meeting law and where they can get a little bit more information, that they're subject to public records, their ethics, laws and requirements on training, and then generally going through things like how to post a meeting, how to maintain the records, when a meeting has to be posted, decorum in a meeting. So pretty general. I know this is your first time getting a look at this draft, and it's definitely a draft. We have not had council review it for any sort of legality of the handbook. What I was hoping for is to get some feedback to make sure that we're hitting all of the sections that you really would like it to be included. At this point, obviously, it's a committee handbook that would be applicable to all the boards under your appointing authority.
And were you thinking that anybody else, other committees would look at it, all the other committees that would govern?
So I certainly think that we could get some comment once you approve the committee handbook to see if they would like to adopt it. It would be great if the committees outside of your purview would then also adopt the handbook to
Well, I mean, even in terms of reviewing the draft and suggesting.
I don't think we were initially thinking that, but.
What do you guys, what are people thinking?
Well, I think that, some input certainly would be valuable. I mean, I think, I think the major board that I would want to probably get some feedback from would be, maybe the planning board. I think, I think a bigger issue for me is kind of where the overlap is with the charter, or the potential charter changes. Is how do we coordinate that as well? And I know you highlighted a few kind of hot button areas in here that we need a little bit more clarity on. I think, and I think council will kind of guide us there, and ultimately we can specifically the removal of someone from a committee.
Yep.
And
so that was definitely something we grappled with in terms of timing. What we were hoping to do is sort of have this done a little bit earlier. That way, during the reappointments, we'd be able to present the new and renewed members with the handbook so that they would be able to read it and they'll sort of sign for it, saying that they understand all of the items that are addressed in there. But we were cognizant that we're sort of having this parallel track of updating a handbook while there is the potential for some charter changes. Ideally, what we were trying to do is sort of hyperlink, so we would give people physical copies, but we'd also make it electronic, and that way you'd be able to you'd be able to link to sort of the law that governs the reason why we have that in this. So public records, obviously if something was governed by our charter, we'd like to just hyperlink it to that section of the charter. So we were certainly cognizant of the parallel tracks. We just didn't want to also sort of hold that up where I know Cindy and Tara had put a lot of time and effort into this.
And the other highlighted area was the annual town reports, or the requirements for committees to present to the Board of Selectmen once a year. And, we've struggled with that particular process for quite some time. And, we've jump-started, we've managed to get a couple committees in, and, so I think we may need to rethink that a little bit, or just massage that one a bit.
So one thing I just have, so this is, I think we need to be clear or think about, is this about committees that we appoint, or is this all committees or elected committees or school committee? And because at various times we talk about committees, and then we kind of say it's committees appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So is that the purview of this? It's just applicable to
So the current committee handbook is only is only applicable to the boards and committees that you appoint. And so in doing an update, that's what we were using as a baseline. Now, if there's something that you'd like to broaden, we can certainly review. You know, there are towns that have one handbook and they have approved and adopted a town-wide handbooks for all committees. That process is obviously a little bit more.
So that's more like a town meeting. Whereas this is, we're just going to approve it, is
I
that?
know that that's a town meeting, but I think you'd then have to have
coordination.
board buy-in, and, you know, I would think that even though we're looking at this, I would think some of the information in here is applicable to any of our elected.
Oh, it certainly is.
Any of our elected boards. Now, I know the school committee probably has their own handbook.
I think they do, yeah.
They have their own policies and procedures, so I don't think we can expect them to use this. But I think certainly have the planning board take a look at it, Board of Health, any of the other elected boards and committees. I think at least let them take a look at this. Maybe we do it after Lisa has reviewed it.
Sure. And if you have any comments about either that we sort of missed a topic that you want included, we can certainly add that, have Lisa review it, and then.
But part of my question is also, who does this apply to and then cover? So if, like, the planning board's an elected board,
but
how does that work?
They
Do we
potentially could
something?
adopt it themselves.
Oh,
and
I
then
see. So they'd have to
so
adopt
it's
it.
imposed upon,
Okay.
I mean.
So anybody
We're not
not
telling them
appointed
they
by
have to
us.
use it, but-
Right, okay.
Again, it applies well to any committee
Sure.
and how you're working and
Well,
what
that's what
you're
I'm saying,
doing.
but in
and-
terms of the process, so any independently elected committee, for example, would have to formally adopt it.
That's
And I think other communities have gone through town meeting for a town meeting vote, so the town adopts it and so that's.
And I think there's sections in here that, you know, certainly, maybe not each and every area, but, you know, when you get into areas of civil discourse and how boards and committees interact with the public, and what is the expectation that we should provide to the public, our responsibilities, but also, you know, on the receiving end, what is responsible and appropriate behavior as well, and, you know, what, you know, so those sorts of questions should, I would think, would be very relative to meetings I've attended or watched, either for the planning board, the ZBA, certainly the Board of Health. So, you know, it'd be nice to get buy-in from a host of committees.
And some of those issues that you just brought up, Steve, are addressed in the charter, multiple charter
That's
review, add-ons and corrections that need to be done, especially the one that says about removal.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because, you know, when you serve on a board or committee, I believe that you are an employee of the town, in essence, and protect,
So as it relates to public record law and open, so particularly.
So in
particularly
essence, you're
public.
signing as an employee of the town, just like, you know, when you join a company, typically you sign the employee handbook. It's
Right.
Similar
It's
to
just
that.
not getting paid, that's all.
All right, recap, are we finished with that?
Just thank certainly Cindy
Oh, sure.
and Tara for a lot of work. It sounds like predominantly Cindy in this case. but
Cindy did a
yeah.
lot of work on this,
So-
and I would be sort of remiss to say that she has been an excellent addition, I think,
Yeah.
to town hall, but particularly to the town clerk's office. She's actually on at a 3-day training for town clerks, working towards her certification, and she received through Tara's leadership a scholarship. So she was able to
Fantastic.
go there on a
Great.
full scholarship. So she's been really fabulous.
Yeah, great. So certainly thanking Cindy and Tara for pushing this through.
So, okay, thank you. Recap downtown planning initiative?
So last night, we had a great event. It was the
Yeah.
first, it was the kickoff to the Downtown Revitalization Planning Initiative. We had definitely over 90 and maybe close to 100 people at the community center for that first conversation about what do the residents want to see in terms of street and landscaping updates to downtown to make it a more pleasant experience. I think overall, didn't hear anything that wasn't expected or didn't really sort of align with what we were hearing in strategic planning conversations with the community or with the survey results. People really are interested in investing in our downtown, increasing walkability, whether there seem to be sort of 3 buckets or maybe even 4 buckets. One, safety, in terms of people don't feel safe because of the way traffic, whether it's speed or just sort of sidewalks, and how the sort of our placement of crosswalks, but also the lighting to allow for people to walk to and from their destination points, and then also that we could increase some bike accommodations to make people feel safer if they're biking to or through downtown. And that there's a need to sort of enhance the aesthetics downtown, and whether that's undergrounding the utilities or creating places where people can, whether it's benches or street furniture, or updating the medians with something that looks nicer than concrete. That was definitely something I thought all of the groups had agreed upon. And then it was really about attracting the right businesses that will bring people downtown and keep them downtown. So we didn't talk a lot about the specific businesses, but people certainly wanted more places that they could come with their families to, whether it was to eat or get a dessert, but they would be able to sort of walk around. And then there was a decent amount of discussion around parking. And I think what we ended up coming to a conclusion is that there isn't necessarily a parking problem, but there may be a parking distribution problem. So there was a lot of discussion around people want to go to, say, the post office, and that's an errand, and so you want to have parking available there. But if you wanted to go to a restaurant, and you may be willing, if the walk was a little bit more pleasant, to sort of walk from a municipal lot to the restaurant, and then maybe around town. So I thought there was really great dialogue. There were a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, which was really encouraging. We're hoping that that will continue throughout the process. And then sort of in parallel with that, we're Michael talked about at our last meeting, working through co-urbanize to get as much input as possible. So we reached out just to sort of see how was our launch as related to other communities, and they think that we have far surpassed basically their expectation of a project this size. We've had over 1,100 visits to the site, with 700 unique people going to the site. We have over 120 people following. And not everybody comments, but there have been 300 plus comments. And we're hoping that people continue to have those dialogues as we're here. I can sort of see like people are commenting. Interesting enough, I facilitated a table, and of the 12 or 14 people that were at my table, only 3 had even heard of it. So I had sort of thought maybe that's what was bringing the new faces, but in fact, many of the people that were at least at my table had not commented, did not know about it. So I'm hoping that now they will actually go and have some dialogue.
I think there were a lot of different, both individuals and groups, that were getting out the fact that the forum was being held, and consequently I think it was really great to see many faces that I have never seen before, and also a number of younger residents, and I mean, certainly the usual suspects were there. Myself and Joel. And the people that tend to go to these events, but there was a sizable demographic there that was different.
Very encouraging.
And thinking about it afterwards, we need to encourage more and more that demographic. I don't know how we do it, but it doesn't. Baby boomers should not be planning for millennials. I think we need millennials to get involved in their planning, and but it was pleasing to see. I heard some great comments from, again, folks never seen before. So
I think something we may want to consider is people who have school-age kids. Either one, evening is not easy for them, or maybe we need to bring it to the schools. Maybe there's a way we can say, okay, as part of a curriculum night or as part of an open house, they're going to be there anyway. Can we try to get there, even if it's not to do a big presentation, but to have a table, have some information that says, go to co-urbanize, be part of it. Oh, and by the way, our next date is such and such, and try to make sure that our next date, even though it was only second grade curriculum, that's still a number of families, because they're not just families that have second graders, they're families that have multiple kids. So I think
That's
it's
a good
important
idea.
that we try to coordinate a little bit more and be at some of those curriculum nights, at least with a table and a sheet of information that says, go to Co-Urbanize and give us your input if you can't make it to a meeting.
That's a
That's
great
fair
idea.
point. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Or
We
even-
did offer babysitting this time, and
I
so
saw that, yeah, there was
So
some
I think
kids
at
in
the
there,
the trail meeting initially they offered babysitting and nobody took them up on it. But this time I think so it's becoming a little bit more of a norm.
You have to
and
be
so like
consistent.
a
You
few
have to
families had
You
that,
have
yeah.
to be consistent that when you come to a meeting like this, there's gonna be babysitting. And then people will expect it.
I don't think, Joe, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I
about-
was just gonna say maybe they should look at the community calendar as a whole, and make sure there isn't anything that's going to conflict, and even look at the school calendar.
Right.
And I mean, we've had this issue for years.
Difficult, yeah.
You know, and it's difficult to schedule one meeting or another event, because there's always gonna be something going on, so maybe again, we look at,
Yeah,
not
okay.
bumping one other.
The other comment that I heard from a number of people, and when you look on Co-Urbanize, it's there as well, is that people want there to be a connection between Stone Park and downtown.
Oh, yeah.
So that, because Stone Park is a wonderful
Sure.
facility, it's offers so much, but if you're downtown, if you don't know it's there, you don't go there.
Yeah.
But if there's some way to connect downtown
Yeah.
to Stone Park,
So right now, the bike path is actually goes along Park Road, takes a left, goes past the post office, so it's kind of an attempt to do that, and whether
Yeah.
that's gonna work out or not, but the other thing, someone asked me about this, it hadn't occurred to me that, you know, downtown is also a pretty busy commuter route. And so I don't know, was there any discussion about through traffic and how to handle it in the light of all this? If you're there in the mornings, it's really, you know, people come in all different directions, so I don't know if there was
So I
much
definitely think it
discussion.
was some discussion about, you know, what is there congestion for commuter traffic? What time? That will probably be collated by BSC, who we're working with to work on design, and they will sort of look at. They're also doing. They did do a study where they counted cars just to sort of. You know, validate times of peak times for through traffic.
Sequencing of the
Sequence.
lights as well.
Yeah, so they'll take all that into consideration on how you best move
Oh, good.
traffic.
Because we don't seem to have much alternatives to going through downtown for those routes, right? I mean, you could maybe
There's
think
not
about-
many viable alternatives if you're going through town.
Yeah.
You have Main Street, you have Summer Street, you have Tilton Ave, you have Cherry Street. Those are very small roads, very narrow roads,
and they're residential.
and they're residential, right? So, I mean,
So we gotta
we
think
have
about
to look
that.
at all that.
Yeah.
Include that. Okay.
But it was good,
It was a
and
good
it's the
turnout.
first of three that will be as
Good.
part of this
Three.
consulting, yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Any update on the Riverwalk?
So just a quick update. We posted an RFQ for design firms to complete the design for the Riverwalk so that we can construct it, which was approved by town meeting in May. We received 6 firms' proposals, and we're in the process of reviewing that, hoping to get under contract by the end of this month, because we do have a pretty aggressive timeline to ensure that we're able to go out to bid and get under contract for construction before the end of this fiscal year.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Good.
Impressive.
Nice.
Quiet zone update.
So this is another just sort of quick update to let you know that we're sort of moving the ball down the court. Working with a vendor now to finalize a contract, and what they'll be responsible for is to complete the 25% design, then present that to the state, and then complete the 75% design. So that's all. It'll be all within the same contract, and just trying to
That's good.
So
continue to move
the
that.
same vendor is gonna do our 25% design, and then they'll go to the state to get approval, and then they'll take us to the 75% design. Okay.
That's good, and people, at least in the downtown forum, were aware of the quiet zone implementation. It's gonna impact what we're doing and how
I
it
did have
gets
a
designed.
question on timing. What's our expectation? I mean, I know it's hard to say with the state, once you have your 25% design, when they get back to us, but
Yeah, I'm not totally clear on that.
any idea? I mean, are we talking 5 years? Are we talking 2 years? I mean, what's the expectation of getting the design and then the completion of the project?
Oh, so I don't know in terms of the
Okay.
completion of. I can certainly look into that.
Okay.
The design for, I think there should be a reasonably fast. I sort of hesitant to use the word fast, turnaround in terms of completing the 75%.
And because the state is working, the state and Mass DOT is working with us on this, will we have to do a 25% design hearing similar to what we did with Route 126 or not? Is that not required?
I don't think that is required, but
Okay.
I'll definitely confirm that, but I don't believe that.
And maybe try to create a timeline and steps so
Sure.
people can be aware of what's going on and when
And I
we
think
can expect things
absolutely.
to happen.
And we can certainly make that part of our contract as we're working through the
Okay.
negotiation piece of it.
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
So, just one quick, the liability aspect of it, the individual that the RFQ took, there's no issue with liability? Because that was one of the concerns that
Liability, in what way?
the design. There was when this first all came out years ago, one of the concerns and why it took so long was that nobody was willing to touch this because of a liability
Yeah,
issue.
I think it did get resolved when we revisited it. It seemed to.
Right, but then it fell through the cracks, so apparently it seems whatever issue.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not raised.
Oh, no,
so I
that's
can
good.
certainly-
Oh, no,
That's good.
I remember now what you're talking about,
Yeah.
the design firm and
Right.
and we kind of talked to the insurance company and they didn't seem to have
Right, there
huge
wasn't
concerns about
right.
quiet zones in general but presumably
That's
these
what took
guys
a while
will.
for the RFQs to get filled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. No, that's good.
Okay, discuss warrant articles.
So we're starting to prepare for the special town meeting, which is scheduled for November 14th. Notices of intent were due last week to me. I received a good number of articles or proposed articles, and so I just want to give you sort of that first look. And as we get a little bit more information, I'll certainly continue to give you updates. So, as we always do for the special town meeting, we'll have the budget adjustments and any changes for the stabilization and OPEB and capital accounts. The property tax exemption, which is, I think, annually on the special town meeting.
Okay.
A conservation restriction for Oak Street, the Clark parcel, so it's behind the Oak Street apartments.
Yep.
So that's been moving through, I think, for several years, and then this would be the final step, as I understand it.
That's good.
Or one of the final steps. We have been discussing through the planning board, Sheila, some changes and potential changes in the non-conforming section of zoning. Not totally sure whether that will actually if we'll actually have language for this town meeting, but it's certainly something we're working on. And I just want, yes, and so, and then also some changes that will basically streamline the processes in sections 5.1.7, 5.2.8, and 5.4, which is really permitting, and it allows the ZBA to give some waivers for parking and other things. And so those they're zoning, so they'll require public hearing, and we'll be continuing to work through that process. There was, obviously, we talked earlier about the RTD easement for the bike trail, and so town meeting will
that's a
have to
town
accept
meeting
that
thing.
as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
CPC has also proposed an article that will allocate funds for the town forest to do some improvements, trail access, parking, purchase a shed for some of their, I think their trail
Yeah,
maintenance
there's been
equipment.
a lot of work being done in there.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
an all-terrain vehicle, I believe, is in there, so that's, and it's for maintaining the
Who
trails.
gets to drive that around?
Someone on the town forest
Oh,
committee.
damn.
Your little white
I'm
car,
always on the rock.
that's what makes it work.
Oh, that's
You gotta-
right, very good.
Can see it now.
We're also hoping to have a parcel of land for the public safety building, so that project continues to move forward in terms of identifying a possible location for the public safety facility. So we're hoping that we'll be able to put forth the purchase of a parcel of land and the design
So the engineering
for
design.
the
Oh,
building.
nice.
Yeah,
Good.
good.
Wow.
Super.
That's nice to hear.
I believe that's, and potentially, so we have, potentially there was, I think we had some quick discussion about it earlier about the sustainability, potentially putting forth
Plastic
a
bag.
plastic bag
Right.
ban.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was gonna ask
So I think that needs
Now,
some.
is that would that be one of ours? Do we adopt that, or is that separate? That's the Sustainability Committee, right? Which is the committee we appoint. So
That's
how
right.
does that work?
So I think that there would be some discussion, maybe at our next meeting about the
So
actual
we would-
language.
So formally
would
recommend.
support that,
Yeah.
yeah. Are they, will they be ready for fall? What's your sense?
I think it will depend on our feedback.
Okay, because I don't think they've had any review from council as yet.
Right, they have not had review for council. Many of these other things, council is well aware of.
And I know they're drafting, I mean, there's a number of communities that have put in plastic bag bans, and so I'm sure they're using those as models.
I was gonna say, town of Natick just did.
Well, Framingham did as well, and it's a phased-in process. So, but just curious how far along they are.
And are we helping, is town council giving them technical assistance, or is that appropriate, or?
So just last week, right prior to the notice of intent, they just put sort of a placeholder in with some ideas around that. I don't believe Lisa has reviewed that, or town council has reviewed.
Is that something we'd
but
expect to do? No.
certainly based
I would think so. If they're bringing it forward, town council has to review
So-
it before it can get put on the,
Mhm.
on the warrant.
So just to ask the question that needs to be asked, if this goes through, what happens with our trash bags? They're plastic.
I don't think it refers to those.
Yeah, they're outside of this. You mean our orange trash bags?
Yeah, orange trash
I don't
bags.
think it relates to that. I don't know for
This is
sure,
for
but.
retail operations,
I don't
not.
know.
Well, it says plastic bags. It
I
didn't,
think-
it didn't say anything that, what I read.
That's a
was-
good point, Joe, because I think what happens in other communities is that, it's coordinated with trash that's similar to our buckets, our recycling buckets.
Mhm.
There's trash. So if we're
Right.
going to migrate towards that double system, then the orange bags go away, right? So that's a good point, so.
And what happened
Why
to
would they-
Natick was
I don't
Natick
get it.
did the ban on the plastic trash bags. There was a discussion about the possibilities of some issues coming up as a result.
Yeah.
But they felt that it was necessary to put that ban in. And then, after the ban was passed at town meeting, the question came up after the vote was taken.
Right.
Well, what are we gonna do with our trash bags now? We can't use them.
Well, hopefully they've
Yes.
taken that into consideration,
Well,
right?
no, well, that's why I hope
And we
that's
can
what they
certainly
do.
put it on for something, because they do have a section for exemptions. And
Okay,
so
well,
this,
that would be good, so
I
that
guess
way
I'm
that
not
would be-
following why, but,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Now, is there a tracker online yet, on the website for the warrant articles?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
And just one other thing about the have they talked to the merchants in town and kind of gotten feedback or anything like that? I know, I was talking to somebody who had trouble contacting Market Basket, but the manager's always there. At least give them a heads up that this is
Yeah, I think
not
they've
just
started
under
outreach. That was my
consideration.
understanding,
Yeah.
that they have started outreach.
Because that would be good to at least, hear what people have to say, or give them a heads up that this
Well,
is
it's just not
something
Market
really
Basket, it's all the stores that utilize
store
them.
that has
Every store that
plastic
has.
bags.
Sure, yeah,
You know,
so.
Dollar Tree, the dollar store,
Any
liquor
store that
stores,
has
any
them,
stores that
yeah.
have them, right.
So maybe that should be part of, their.
Restaurants that use them
Right,
Review.
for takeout.
for takeout, so, I mean, that's gonna affect a lot of businesses, so, like you said, get their input. There's a lot out there.
Okay. Anything else on the warrant articles? Is there any capital items? Are we revising capital list?
No.
Because someone contacted me about support for a capital item, so I don't know if that's under consideration or not. Okay.
Well, there will be capital
there'll be-
discussed in the beginning
Yes,
as part
so
of the
there'll be
budget.
capital discussed, but the budget, the documentation for that has not been.
But no new items necessary, because we did the whole list last spring, so this is, okay. Well, we'll see what we come up with. Okay, board reports. We'll start on this side.
Which side?
Wow.
I pointed to Mr. Mignani
Thank you.
there.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to briefly acknowledge the passing of a town citizen who's been a lifelong resident in town and a very noticeable individual and a very caring person who had tens of thousands of friends. When I say that, I really mean he had that many friends. He was a gentle giant. He was a man with a huge smile and a bigger heart. And the passing of Teddy Nichols this past week has affected a lot of people. And if you were able to see the tribute that all the motorcycle
Oh, yeah, I
gangs
saw that.
in the Massachusetts area and even New England area, they came and they were out in support, and it was quite a tribute for Ted and to his family. So my condolences go out to his entire family and all of Teddy's friends. With that, I'd just like to report that we had our Ashland Day, 32nd Ashland Day. It started out a little slow. We're getting a little nervous, but it finished in a fine fashion. It was, as the sun came out, more people came out, which was great. And we had a guesstimate about 7,500 people throughout the day, which was great. And that included the fact that there were 4 other good events going on in the area. You know, Hollister and Hopkinton had their 2 events going on in their town that day. Framingham had their craft fair going on. So there was a multitude of many events going on that people had the opportunity to go to. And it looks like they ended up at our place, which was great. I'd like to congratulate the decisions at every turn. They were honored as the Grand Marshals this year. And I would like to congratulate Betsy Embley as our Citizen of the Year. I think there were 2 fine, deserving people and group to receive those accolades and continued success with what they do. Our next event coming up, it will be October 26th. It's a Friday night. It's always the Friday before Halloween, and Halloween falls on, I think, Wednesday or Tuesday this year. So it's going to be a little away from Halloween, but it's our annual Halloween parade and party, and it starts at Montenegro Square at 6 o'clock. We hope you all can attend. And lastly, if I don't, I'll be sleeping on the sofa. I want to wish my wife a very happy birthday. Her birthday is the 22nd, so I just want to make sure that she.
I was going to say, I didn't think it was for a couple days yet.
No. But I just want to make sure she knew that I didn't forget.
Okay.
nice.
We still have a couple days to make
I
sure
have
that
a
you
couple
really
of days,
take care of her.
Absolutely, believe me. And the reminders are slowly being left here, there, and everywhere. So, but yeah, thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yolanda?
Well, I would like to congratulate Joe and the rest of the Ashland Day Committee for having such a great event. It's always fun to go. WACA and Around the Clock was actually broadcasting live, so for people who were not able to be there, they could see it live on their computers, and we had some good feedback of people who said, I wish I could be there. It brings back lots of memories, so that was fun. I'd also like to give a congratulations to Decisions at Every Turn and Betsy Emberly for being recognized for all the great work that they do. It was a truly fun thing to be a part of. And apparently the surprise was held for Betsy by her husband, so congratulate to Dave on holding that surprise. The event last night in regards to the downtown forum was very good. I look forward to many more of those and continuing that discussion. And that's all I have.
Great. Mary, Steve?
So, I guess first thing, just in case Joe forgets, happy birthday, Donna.
Yes, happy birthday,
Happy
Donna.
birthday. I did last Friday, typically this time of year, there's a staff barbecue that's held. This year it was a little different. It was held indoors. It was scheduled at the community center, and it incorporated a town manager's report. And it was very well done. It was very well attended, and just a nice way to identify individuals, both new employees and as well as folks that have done significant things over the course of the year. So it was well done. I commend Michael and Jen for a really nice event. This past
Yesterday,
Monday. Gosh, this is so weird with the being here on Tuesday.
I know.
It's not,
All right,
not
so it
usual.
is Tuesday. So Monday, there was the Over 80 luncheon at the community center and sponsored by the Friends of the Council on Aging. And it was a great event, 130 Over 80 citizens got to meet, your
My
mother-in-law was there.
Did she behave herself?
She was great.
Okay, very
Got
good.
to meet a lot of people, and they almost sang happy birthday for me, but I said, don't do that, please. And I just said that, my comment was, it was just a pleasure to be here and to celebrate their longevity.
Great.
And hope that I get to that point with their energy. And so it was great. I commend the staff and the volunteers from the community center, certainly the Council on Aging and the Friends in particular, for a great job. And then, again, just want to send best wishes to Alice, Malcolm Smart, and Clara, and Arthur Kaya. So that's my tune.
All right, thank you.
I just want to add one thing, Steve. I want to thank you for being able to go to these events that some of us can't make it to. So thank you for going and representing the board, because I think people really appreciate board members being there. So again, like the luncheon on Friday with the employees and the luncheon yesterday, I know we all have busy schedules, so thank you for stepping up and being able to be there for us, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, that's right. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
All right. And I too just wanted to say, that Ashland Day was a great event as usual, and thanks to all the people who did it, and Joe and the rest of the crew there. And it's good to see the various town committees, especially out there in the service organizations. Especially want to mention the Ashland Lions and the Greater Ashland Lions for they're out there in force. And thanks for providing them that opportunity. It's a great fundraiser for them. So
It is.
anyway, and the only other thing I wanted to mention is next Thursday, a week from Thursday, the 28th at 7 o'clock is the last of the bicycle, or I should say the Upper Charles multi-use path forums, where we're going to kind of get the final recommendation and feedback from the consultants about the routing of the trail. So I would urge people to come, especially if you kind of help us finish off this process, at least getting to kind of a hard recommendation as to the route of the trail. And that's, again, Thursday at the Community Center, 7 o'clock, September 28th, a week from this Thursday. So
This is sort of late, but I'm almost thinking it would have been good to use co-urbanize for
Yes.
that project.
I had exactly
just like
that
we're doing
thought.
with downtown.
Yeah. Yes.
It
Oh,
would have
yeah.
been perfect
And-
for
and-
people to give their feedback
Right.
and
hopefully maybe we can transition to it,
Right.
because it'll be going on for a while.
right.
So
I
that's
think
a
it's
great
definitely
idea.
something we should look
Yeah.
into. It's a great tool, and
Yes.
it's just a great way to reach out to so many people.
Yes, very good. All right.
Okay.
So without without hearing anything else, I'll
Just a
take
reminder, people who are celebrating, the Jewish holidays
Oh,
are
sure.
coming up, so
Happy New Year.
Thank you
Happy
for
New
that.
Year.
Very good. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No, none opposed. Okay.
Good night.
All
God
right.
bless.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
meeting is adjourned. Thank you for.